Popularized by its famous slogan written in the 1960s, the state of Virginia features famous landmarks and tourist attractions. One of those attractions is Virginia International Raceway, which broke ground in 1957 for what would become a coveted American circuit. It retains most of its classic features, save for the old oak tree that marked turn 12. This weekend, VIR hosts the 7th and 8th round of the Fanatec GT World Challenge America season, where drivers face an old-school course with immense natural beauty in the state of Virginia. Fanatec GT World Challenge America is one of 4 international series with championships in Asia, Australia, and Europe, each contributing to the global reach of the SRO. This weekend's journey to Virginia is the 4th of 7 events across North America, marking the midpoint of the season and highlighting its fierce championship battles, with a finale event at the racing capital of the world in Indianapolis.
Welcome to VIR, Virginia International Raceway. Paul Newman famously described this place as heaven on earth. But what could be more heavenly than 30 drivers pushing the limits of their GT3 machinery around one of the toughest tracks in North America? Speaking of tough tracks, let's say hello to our Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe drivers who will face a similar beast this weekend at the Hockenheim range. But now, let's get you caught up on what's happening here in America. This weekend will already mark the halfway point in this 2024 season, and the battles are already raging in both the pro classes and Pro-Am. Now, if you take a look at the pro category, it is the right year to be Wright Motorsports, as that 120 Porsche has the lead over the ST Racing BMW. In Pro-Am, it is a battle between ST Racing and Turner Motorsports. A dominant weekend from either of those teams would give a nice cushion headed into Road America. And as we get ready for more racing here in the United States, you may have seen the release of the 2025 Fanatec GT season. We'll return right here to Virginia International Raceway. But what makes this place so special and heaven on earth? Calvin Fish has that answer.
Well, this is going to be a fun one. Our Fanatec GT track preview from VIR. I've got a pilot here, Neil Verhagen, drives a BMW, the ST Racing number 38 with Samantha Tan. Neil, we're going to touch about 160 miles an hour here this weekend in your GT3 machine. Talk us through this brake zone down into turn 1.
Yeah, so hard on the brakes coming into turn 1. Super important to maximize the entry of the track here. And then to get a good exit to stay about middle of the track is where you want to be about, to open up turn 3 as much as possible.
I assume with tire deck you may be slipping a little bit deeper out of that corner as we get further into the tire run. I assume compliancy over the curbs here is really important.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Over these curbs here, you want the car to be as compliant as possible, and then you want to touch the brakes and you want to use all of this curb in here to open up this section as much as possible.
That's left hook. I'm going to set up for what they call the snake. It really twists and turns here. Again, using all of those curbs. Then Neil, I feel these climbing S's here is one of the most beautiful ribbons of asphalt in all of North American motorsport. What are your thoughts approaching this in the race car?
Well, these are all flat here. In the road car, it's a little bit more tricky. I need to be a little bit more careful through here, but this is all flat through here. Even this right-hander here is flat in the GT3. Key is to stay as much to the right as possible to open up this corner here, as the exit here has a high curbing. It can catch you out and put you in the grass.
Then it really slows down here. You've got to be so careful through this initial part as we head into Oak Tree. This is turn 11. Gets really marbly and gray on the outside there during race conditions.
Yeah, and again, a important exit here. You want to get, as we light up the rears there, didn't get the traction that I was looking for out of there. I'm a bit used to my GT3, but this is a super important exit coming out of here, longest straight on the track.
Yeah, this is Madison Avenue. Going to be touching about 160 miles an hour here as we get to the braking point. Tricky brake zone here, Neil. It's got curves to the left, then tightens up as we tip into the roller coaster.
Yeah, as you said, difficult braking zone. In the GT3, we're at the 1 mark there, so much later than in the road car here. And then here we go into the final section, cool section. You have to use all of the curbing here to open up the corner as much as possible.
Like being a slalom skier, having to hit your gates coming through here. This is Hogpen, final corner on the lap. Wow, what a ride. VIR, it doesn't get any better. 3 1/4 miles, 17 turns, super challenging. Neil, great ride, mate. Good luck this weekend in the races.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Hello and welcome to VIR. Kyle Heyer joined by Calvin Fish with Amanda Busick on the pit lane. And Calvin, this is a beautiful facility, a great racetrack, but it has been a challenging weekend as far as the conditions are concerned here this weekend.
It really has. Had rain come in last night, so it sort of like took a lot of the rubber away, made it a little bit greener, and then we had intermittent rain showers throughout the course of the day with the races being affected. But right now, I'd say the racetrack is in pretty good shape, just coming off a brilliant GR Cup race a few moments ago. Teams, drivers getting ready to go. But they have to factor in that weather forecast. There is still a threat of rain. Does anyone compromise their setup, banking on the rain? I think if you're on the back foot a little bit, maybe not feel that you have true race-winning pace in dry conditions. Do you roll the dice? Do you gamble on the setup and hope that the rain arrives and you may have a better machine for those conditions?
Yeah, halfway point in the championship after this as we get set for round 7 and 8 of this championship season after a bit of a summer break that we've had that has kind of broken up some of the drama that we are expecting to see at our next rounds here at VIR, at Road America, Barber, and Indianapolis at the tail end of the season. Teams and drivers getting set to go racing, bolting on different sets of Pirelli P0 tires. And of course, SRO is part of a global championship, and SRO Europe was racing at Hockenheim earlier this weekend. Well, let's head down to Amanda first and check in with her down in the pit.
Hey, Kyle, as you talked about, a very busy pit lane happening down here. As you said, those Pirellis are going on these race cars. You can see drivers getting suited, putting that headstock on and their helmet as they get ready for the race that is ahead. And Calvin, as you were talking about, we've already seen precipitation here at VIR today, and that's been the conversation in this paddock as well. But talking to Alec Udell, he was saying that whether it happens or it doesn't, it's going to be the same for everyone. So as you've been saying, Kyle, it can be the great equalizer.
Yeah, certainly can be the great equalizer here at VIR, but of course SRO part of a global championship. Of course, there was some great racing at tracks all over the world, including the Hockenheim, where SRO Europe was racing earlier today.
Let's look at the highlights then. There were many of race 1, which began with a very quick starting Porsche up the inside of Dennis Marshall off the grid, but he got roughed up in the course of that first lap. So as the cars turned their way out of turn 1, it ended up with an early battle between Ben Green and Lucas Auer, with Dan Harper right there as well. Ben Green getting squeezed out wide at turn 8, and that allowed the Mercedes to go through. Dan Harper getting up and past as well. Alessio Dono by this stage was long gone up the road, but eventually Ben Green had to give way. He got roughed up a little bit coming into the stadium and fell to 4th as the pit stop window opened, but it was a slow stop for 71 Ferrari, and it rejoined down in 4th place and lost its class lead as well. For the race lead though, side by side, Maro Engel and Dries van Thorp, big battle between the two of them. The BMW briefly ahead from 19th on the grid, but then it ran wide and handed the lead back to Maro Engel. And wanted to regain the lead. The Mercedes was not for losing it as Tom Fleming worked his way up past Sam de Haan for the Silver Cup lead. There was one last chance for Vanthoor to have a go coming through the Spitzkehrer hairpin, but Maro Engel had everything covered, and as the BMW wagged its tail, Engel got the drive off the hairpin and was able to come through and score the race win. 1 second to the good as the checkered flag flew at the end of race 1 of Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS Sprint Cup here at Hockenheim. A win for Lucas Auer and a delighted Maro Engel.
And congratulations to the Mercedes for that victory in Hockenheim. We do have a Mercedes on front row here at VIR, but it's next to that Corvette that we saw show out at COTA and already looking spectacular here at VIR. And Tommy, I heard you talking to Alec before this race. Any strategy ahead that we can look for? I know the weathers might be at play. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, certainly the weather is going to be a big part of the race today, I think. I mean, it looks dry for now, but there's some pretty threatening clouds in the area. So Corvette's been amazing so far this weekend, pole in both races here. So good start for sure. Yeah, the strategy is no mistakes, as always. We've got some fast cars behind us for sure. So hopefully you can get the car in my hands later on. No mistakes, and then same for me for the end of the race. It'll be tricky here. The tire deg is definitely a part of the picture here in the race. So if we can keep the tires underneath us, then we'll be in good shape.
I know VIR is somewhat of a home race for you. What are some of the top memories here?
Wow, I mean, I got my first professional GT race was here in 2004. First pole position that same weekend. My first pole in IMSA here as well. So a lot of good memories here at VIR. Amazing group of people here that run this racetrack. One of the best racetracks in the world. Just a lot of fun to drive this racetrack by yourself, but also racing as well. So looking forward to go racing here in SRO with all these great competitors.
If we do see precipitation, what is the secret in the rain here?
Oh, good luck. There's some rivers here, some puddles. We saw a little glimpse of that this morning in the GT America qualifying. Obviously saw some of the support races as well. Their race was quite wet, obviously. So we watched a little bit of that, try to get as much information as we can. We haven't raced here. I haven't driven here quite a while in the wet. So I think the case for most of the guys here as well. So it'll be a little bit of a let's see what happens kind of thing.
Awesome, Tommy. Good luck. All right, guys. Well, a couple more interviews that we can talk about before we get started. Jeff Burton, they are doing that opposite strategy again, so Philip Ellis is going to kick off this race. And, Jeff, I know we've been talking many a times. Can today be the day?
We hope so. We're going to both give it hell and see how it works out, you know. Weather's in our favor. Let's hope so, yeah. Phil's always done his part. I got to catch up.
Well, good luck to the 91 Mercedes. Guys, I have to point this out because I saw Brian Sellers walking around on pit lane here, on the grid here earlier. He was holding an espresso, so our drivers are ready to go for these 90 minutes.
Yeah, getting set for the 90-minute race here, round 7 of Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. Cars getting set up side by side, and in a few moments here, Calvin will get engines fired up and turn them loose. But the conditions have been changing all day long, and so you never really know what it's going to do, but I see blue sky outside.
Yeah, and I tell you what, there's a few drivers on this grid who, if it does rain, have a bit of an advantage. One is including Justin Rothberg, who took the checkered flag. We're still waiting to see if there's any steward's inquiry, let's put it that way, a little bump and run with Johnny O'Connell on the last lap, but he did get to see the checkered flag. But most importantly, that team got some information in the wet in terms of setup and changes and tweaks they need to make should we see a bit of a downpour mid-race today.
So, and see the number 8 as well, Elias Sabo strapping into the Flying Lizard Motorsports Aston Martin Vantage AMR GT3, and as part of this championship battle, you know, just getting comfortable with the car and the drivers, and of course for some teams chasing the fight this afternoon from VIR, this fast old school racetrack. It is going to be a lot of fun. It's been hot here this weekend, but with the storms that have blown through, it's cooled off quite a bit, and I think that's going to be something to follow as well as the temperature and the tire deg, and how the off-track areas as well contribute to the loss of grip beyond the limit. So with drivers strapped in their cars, we've got a field of about a dozen Fanatec GT World Challenge America cars getting set to go racing, and they're about to fire engines. There they go, and a variety of makes and models and manufacturers coming to life on pit lane, Calvin.
Yeah, they are, and right now we have dry conditions, and I think Tommy Milner hit the nail on the head in terms of the big factor here is going to be that tire deck. So, you know, do you get the driver out, get some fresh Pirelli P0s on, kind of do the undercut, so to speak, and get that advantage, and maybe leapfrog around some cars who are staying out a little bit deeper into the run. So lots to play out here, lots to learn. It's certainly a little bit cooler, not sort of the ambient or track temperatures that we've seen here in practice, and free practice here on Thursday. So lots to learn for these teams and drivers, who made the right tweaks, who guesstimated the right setup for today's conditions.
And potentially strategy involved as well. We've got that pit window to talk about when we get to it, the driver swaps, nailing all of those different factors so that you can come out on top here at a very critical pivot point in the season. So the 13 cars make their way around, kind of exploring the track for the first time since some rain showers have come through and washing some of the rubber off as well. The 50 of Aaron Povolito is still on the pit lane, Cal.
Yeah, this is not great.
They were set to start 11th.
Yeah, because they had a really fast car here practice. We're pretty bullish about their opportunity here today in race conditions, so we assume it's some kind of technical issue. They're not in the driver's side. It's not like he's got issues getting strapped in or buckled in. It's more of a technical issue. A lot of electrical components sit in that passenger side, so to speak. So the team is going to work. The problem is now he's kind of fell to the tail end, and he will not be allowed to reassume his grid position, so he's going to drop from 11th, definitely down to 13th in this 13-car field.
Yeah, and you wonder also, did the passing showers also fritz something in the electronics when things get wet and dry out again? That can cause some issues as well. But Cars rolling up on their 2 formation laps here, Calvin, before we turn them loose for 90 minutes time, and we'll see speeds really well into the 160s on that Madison Avenue back straightaway. This is a fast, old-school circuit, like I mentioned before. It doesn't tolerate a lot of mistakes, and in places that it does tolerate it a bit, you go for a wild ride there in the grass, but still working in the passenger compartment of that 50.
Yeah, see some new electronic boxes coming in, it looks like, or some test equipment at least, just trying to diagnose exactly what's wrong. But yes, the problem is the racetrack is dry, but if you make that critical error with the amount of water that's laying around this racetrack right now, you kind of spare off and head in the same direction. Hopefully you're pointed where there's a gap or somewhere to escape, but more than likely you're ending up in that tire barrier. But the safety improvements around this racetrack are phenomenal, so it's keeping everyone safe, but even so, it keeps the drivers on their toes.
So Philip Ellis in that number 91 will kick things off for regular racing, pulling that reverse strategy like we talked about. In the Pro-Am lineup, generally, convention is you run your Am first and your Pro second. They flip that around, flip the script to see if they can find an advantage. But let's have a look at the way they line up here today for Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS Race 1. It's Philip Ellis at Regulator Racing alongside DXGT Racing's number 63 Corvette with Alec Udell on the front row. Bill Oberlin in row 2 alongside Luca Mars for Racers Edge Motorsports in that number 93 Acura NSX. Starting in 5th, it's Spencer Pompelli in RS1, returning to the Pro category this time out. Adam Adelson starts 6th for Wright Motorsports. Justin Rothberg won this morning, and GT America starts 7th alongside Samantha Tan for ST Racing in the number 38 BMW. Scott Smithson rolls off 9th in the 08 Corvette. Will Hardiman for S's Racing with Mercedes-Benz of Austin in 10th. Then it's Aaron Povolito. Of course, we saw them stuck on the pit lane replacing some electronics. They would have rolled off in 11th. Elias Sabo will start in 12th, and Kyle Washington in the number 32, rocking a new livery on that car this week, Calvin. He will start in 13th.
Yeah, we talked about that strategy that Philip Ellis and Jeff Burton have employed all season long. A couple of other teams now following suit. One is the 28 machine, Bill Oberlin, doing the qualifying tours, and will start this race, but before turning over to Varun Shoksky. And then a little bit deeper in the pack, Povolito, and that's kind of backfired them on them a little bit with the car not starting up here on the pre-grid.
And I think they're going to run out of time to get the car on the road before the green flag drops, so then you face going laps down, and that will really put you in a hole. I mean, there's still a potential, even if you, as long as you stay on the lead lap, you know, you can get that position back if there's a full course yellow or something of the sort. But once you start going laps down, it becomes an almost irrecoverable situation as far as points are concerned.
Yeah, there's a bit of a scramble going on there. Looks like they've maybe put in a new electronic component, just using those big tire wraps, I think, to get it tightened down.
Well, let's head down and see what's going on with the 50 with Amanda in the pit lane.
Yeah, you can see the 50 is just still sitting on pit lane. They did push the car to the pit box as they assessed the situation, asked the team what was going on, and they raised their shoulders and said it's simply not starting. I have seen some of the front lights kick on here and there as they're working in the Mercedes, but we'll try to get the 50 on track, guys.
Thanks, Amanda. And yeah, that's even worse, Calvin, when you don't know what's exactly causing the problem. You can narrow it down, the fact that, you know, the battery seems to be working, kick the lights on, but something's not quite right in that 50.
Yeah, it's a shame because there's so much effort into being here this weekend. Had a couple of good test days and felt they had pace last night, but race day has obviously bitten them so far. Hopefully they can see some action and learn a little bit in the race conditions here today.
Well, the lights have extinguished atop the Toyota GR Supra safety car, and the field is double stacking and getting set for their 90-minute race here this weekend as part of the Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, on a mission to make it to Indianapolis, the Indianapolis 8-hour at the end of the season as part of the Global Intercontinental GT Championship. Side by side, though, they are packed up and paired up and heading down the front straightaway and rolling slowly towards that green flag, which will be handed out by the brand manager of Riva. That's Jonathan Eckhart. There he is with the green flag steady in the box and getting ready to wave it for the first race of the weekend at VIR. Here we go, green flag, and we're racing in Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS at Virginia. And Philip Ellis gets away clean down towards turn 1. Bit of a bob and a weave there by the Bill Oberlin 28 Calvin into the first corner.
Yeah, big move there by Bill Oberlin. He takes over the prime position there in the pro class. So it's a battle for, oh, a little nudge there. Alec Udell trying to respond to that move that he made. Spencer Pumpelly now there on the outside. We're on board here with Luca Mars. Bodywork flying here on the opening lap.
Udell getting the elbows out there and potentially holding off an opportunity from the 93 of Luca Mars to get up there as well. Elbows out, jabbing the rib cages here early.
And he just has to give it up. Spencer is through, so argy-bargy on the opening lap. Great start there by Bill Orblin, forcing the issue down into turn one. Philip Ellis has the Pro-Am lead, but now Bill Orblin has the Pro lead for ST Racing.
Justin Rothberg thought about taking it too wide up through the S's. That's challenging to do. It's really a one-lane wide racing line there. Down into South Bend and into Oak Tree for the first time. High-speed, high-commitment area. After a pretty frantic start now, they're single file down.
Everything's settling in here. Tires coming up to pressure, up to temperature. Well, everyone survived. Pretty chaotic first 3 or 4 corners there.
I'd say, but now with Bill Oberland in tow of Philip Ellis, it's Mercedes-AMG versus BMW at the moment. You see the 28 reeling in the 91. Of course, it looked like Udell was able to salvage 3rd place after that, and the 120 and the 38 now doing battle for 6th.
So Philip Ellis has the lead. He's got to factor in who aggressive Bill Oberlin's going to be there. The BMWs typically have really strong straightaway speed, but the Mercedes is really good over the complete lap.
Down the front straightaway to complete the first of many laps this afternoon here. 90 minutes on the board and just under 2 laps so far. Ellis across the stripe, Oberlin, Udell, Pumpelly, Luca Mars. And then as far as the Pro-Am battle, 2nd place is Samantha Tan with Justin Rothberg just behind.
Curious to see if there's any that bodywork damage is going to affect the performance of some of these front-running cars. Certainly Udell was in the middle of that action. A little tap on Oberlin. I don't think his car should be damaged. There we see.
Yeah, there was a couple pieces that came off. I think it was the 63, Calvin, and there were small little dive planes and things, but it seems almost inconsequential, but all of those pieces are very important to the functionality.
Yeah, they just add downforce and put pressure on that front splitter and allow you to carve the corner a little bit more effectively. So some adjustments he can make in the cockpit if he does suddenly have an imbalance, but settle back down again. He's got a nice gap over Pumpelly, so he's not under any threat from behind, sitting there in P2, but I think Oberlin had his sights set. He wanted to grab that pro pole here this morning, just missed out on that, suffered traffic on a couple of his important laps when the tires were really in their sweet spot, but an excellent start for Oberlin.
Elias Sable working forward in that number 8 Flying Lizard Motorsports car, the Aston Martin Vantage AMR GT3 Evo. The elbows out, up on the wheel here. Down the back straightaway, just behind is 32 of Kyle Washington in that GMG Racing Porsche.
Brand new Porsche. This car's had a lot of pace here this weekend. Tom Sargent putting a really great qualifying performance to have a really strong grid position for tomorrow's race. Kyle Washington, we talked about the 2-month break in the action, but he has still kept busy running in multiple championships this year, so he's very much in race mode in this mid part of the season.
Down the hill here through roller coaster and into hog pen, a big compression here, Calvin. Faster, and the drier the track gets, the faster that area will be. You talk about high commitment corners, that's certainly one of them.
It really is. I think hog pen, that final corner, is a really tricky one because you turn, you're looking to the right, obviously, and you've got to feel the edge of the road, kind of your peripheral vision. So easy in these conditions to just drop a wheel coming off that corner.
And it sounds like Amanda Busick's got more on the 32 down on pit lane.
Yeah, I was just going to add on to Calvin's conversation and talking about this new car for Kyle Washington this weekend. They're moved to the 992 platform of the Porsche. Said that he loved that 991 that he's been racing for several seasons. You guys remember, you go back to the GT America race in COTA, he saw the 2nd step of that podium. So Kyle's been loving that car, but it's talking about the challenge of switching to this more new Porsche and different ways that it exists on track, especially around here at VIR. Kyle said that it's an extremely challenging track that he has to be on it at all time.
Yeah, absolutely, and the Porsche, this car, the Porsche 911 GT3R 992 and all of its predecessors have certainly proven themselves over decades that they are really solid racing machines, in every iteration from 991.2 to 992 just get incrementally better.
Yeah, and it's exciting times for GMG. This is the team that Kyle Washington runs with. James Safranis kind of spearheads the operations there. And they're now about to move into their brand new race shop over in Thermal. 28,000 square feet. Awesome facility. I was looking at the video of the new shop. Just fantastic stuff. Really allows James and all of his customers to really take advantage of that excellent facility there. You literally drive out of the race shop straight on a pit lane. And that's going to really enhance all of James Racing programs for all of the classes that they compete in.
And the 19, Will Hardiman, the SS Racing with Mercedes-Benz of Austin team. They have joined a couple of rounds this season here, and they put in some good showings as well as far as pace is concerned. Kind of right in the thick of it right now, running P9 between Justin Rothberg and Scott Smithson.
Yeah, saw Will's partner this weekend, Adam Carroll, who's he did the opening round of the championship. We haven't seen him in race action since. He said, boy, this is a real challenge here. He never competed here at VIR before. He didn't get on a sim, but he said in practice this is an eye-opener. He said he absolutely loves the circuit, but lots to learn here.
Yeah, of course, RS1 is returning in the Porsche just ahead of this car, the 93 of Luca Mars and the Acura NSX GT3 Evo. Of course, Racer Jazz Motorsports has had a lot of success here at this racetrack. Ran pretty well last year as far as pace, and now in this battle here for fourth.
Let's listen. Yeah, the commitment up through those climbing S's. Awesome piece of racetrack here. Then down a gear through turn 10. This is turn 11. Gotta be careful coming through there as the marbles kind of accumulate on the outside of the corner. Very easy to make a mistake and overshoot that corner. Then it's out of Oak Tree. This is Madison Avenue.
Yeah, long run up this straightaway there, but a lot of the drivers were talking about how much you're just flat to the floor up through those S's and trusting the downforce through that area here and then into the braking. One of the major things about downforce is it contributes to the braking as well, and as you brake and slow down, that downforce comes off and makes it even trickier the slower you go.
Yeah, big time. A lot to learn there in terms of the commitment and how the quicker you go, the more downforce you're creating, and the car will feel better and better, but it takes a lot of commitment to get used to that, and that's why a lot of these drivers are making the transition from GT4 to GT3 machinery this year. That's a big learning curve.
And for the 63, I mean, coming out swinging in a big way at Circuit of the Americas, 2 wins there with this driver lineup, Tommy Miller, Alec Udell, and great chemistry on that team as well. And team boss David Askew's all about building teams, and I think they've done a very nice job with that, and things are looking good so far early.
Yeah, I mean, the car has looked good all season long in the various championships that it's been running on, but it's now really finding its sweet spot. The Scotland score victories nationwide here with various championships, and the car looks really good. Alec Udell has really grabbed this opportunity, and with both hands, he's just done an amazing job. We've all known of Alec's talent and his speed, but to get this opportunity with a big time, with a big program, and he's really a great partner for Tommy Milner to try and have more success. And he's very proud to get that first win on the global stage for this brand.
And there was some fun strategy involved, that Circuit of the Americas as well. That was a cool race to watch, and that was a really strong run for them. Of course, the driver of that 29, the Turner Motorsports car that we just met. Whoa, big off, wow, huge off for the 08, getting some air time there is Scott Smithson, and he's gonna loop the car down there by turn 11.
Yeah, I think the tires were just dirty there by the time he had to woe it down. It just goes for a quick spin. Sabre goes through, Washington around the high side, so that's that tricky one. The turn 10, you got to come down a gear, and he just lost it on the outside of that corner there. See if he's got some live, fires it back up. Tough to spin the car around when the tires are got full temperature, of course.
Yeah, that was a fast, high-speed area of the racetrack, and got a couple feet off the ground. I think all 4 Pirellis left the road there for a minute, but seemed like he got away with it for the most part. As we check back in on Philip Ellis, your race leader, just ran his fastest lap of the race, a 1:46.893. And here's a look at it again, just pretty late in the corner there, Calvin.
Yeah, it was. It was kind of on the exit of turn 10, just gets out wide there, just ran out of room, and that's really set up by the approach. Neil Verhagen on our Fanatec GT track preview talked about the fact you've got to be all the way to the right before you carve in and turn through turn 10. Maybe just compromise his entry a little bit, and unfortunately he's got off on the grass here, and now he's struggling to get the car moving, and that is not a great place to be. If he's there for much longer, they're going to have to go full course yellow, because if someone makes a bigger mistake at those sort of speeds, that is an awful spot to be in.
And this is not what Philip Ellis was hoping for. They really don't need a full course yellow playing this reverse strategy like this, so they're going to be big fans of the 08 getting that car out of the grass, but it doesn't look like he's able to do that for the moment.
No. Exactly, and to your point, Kyle, with the strategy they employ, they need Philip Ellis out front to do what he's doing, build a big gap, and and hand that gap over to Jeff Burton to try and protect to get to the checkered flag.
As the field works on by there, they're going to still give them at least a bit more opportunity, but they can't leave that car there all day, so it will likely draw the yellow for the moment. All the while, the 19 Will Hardiman is chasing down Justin Rothberg, who won in pretty dramatic fashion this morning in the GT America Series in a pretty wet race. There's that double yellow, the full course caution we were just talking about.
Yeah, you just can't play with that, because if you cut and paste the same moment for someone else, they're going to end up in the same part of the racetrack. So it's unfortunate. He spun it around, got in the grass, and then I'm not sure if he's got some kind of technical issue with the clutch or something like that, but he can't get any traction and get out of there.
Yeah, seemed like the wheels were spinning, but no drive was happening. And to your point, how slippery it was out in the grass, and there's a lot of standing water as well. Here's a look at the quickest sectors for a couple of different cars here, and the 91 better in sectors 1 and 3, and the 63 car, the Corvette, better in sector 2.
Yeah, so you can see Ellis is pretty strong for 2/3 of the lap. Alec Udell has a little bit more pace with the Corvette up through the high-speed S's, and I think that's where that car really excels. But this is exactly what Philip Ellis in regulator racing did not need, is to see that gap erased. As we see Tommy Milner observing, seeing his co-driver Alec Udell sitting second in the Pro Class, 3rd overall, just a few tenths behind Bill Auberlen. Auberlen's up on the wheel early. Can he keep the tires underneath him? That's the big concern with all of these drivers here this weekend, is maintaining that race pace.
For Bill Auberlen, he's leading the pro category at the moment. When we get back to this restart, how much of a push is there to get by the 91 and set the pace despite them not sharing a class?
Well, that's not really important. I mean, Ellis has pace, so that he's not really a cork in the bottle, do you know what I mean? So he just needs Ellis to go off and do his own thing and follow in his footsteps. I think the big factor is here, they're trying to chase down that 120 in terms of the points, and they're not having the greatest of weekends. Skier had a pretty good running second qualifying here this morning, but right now the championship leaders sit 5th in points. So that's what you need. You need those big point swings to really eat into that gap. Right now the gap is 26 points between the 120 and the 28. So you have a big swing like that today, that could really help the cause moving forward.
08 is getting pulled out of the grass over there by South Bend. Looks like Ross Schwest is still on pit lane, or the Povalita Racing car is still on pit lane. They have not gotten that car out on course just yet.
Yeah, and this will turn into a bit of a test session. They've got to use this race time to at least sort out what is wrong with the car and get it ready to go for tomorrow's race.
It's not the way that they wanted to run this race. You don't ever really want a race to be a test session unless you're so far ahead of everyone that you can't afford to do that, but that's not the position they're in, unfortunately. It's 08 is off and away, got that car refired, and it's going to rejoin the field now, at least 1 lap down, 2 laps down, actually.
Yeah, he had to do that. Like I said, it's hard to do like a quick flip spin when the tires are that hot. You're going to stall it out. So he had to use the grass there to try and get it turning with the amount of water we've got. I was wondering if he'd burnt the clutch out or something like that by trying to get it moving, but I think he was just stuck in the mud.
So he will rejoin the group of cars here. The lights are still on the Toyota GR Supra safety car. A couple vehicles on track that will need to get back to the pit lane area. But it's put a bit of a hold there on the progress of the first race of the weekend for Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, a 90-minute race, just about 14 minutes complete. And the 28, Bill Auberlen, running in second, leading that pro category, and Amanda Busick is down there with the team for the 28.
Bill Auberlen had an excellent start to this race. It sees that BMW in the first place in the pro category. And Varun, I was talking to you yesterday. You want one more step on that podium to see the top step. What have you seen out of the BMW so far that seems promising?
I mean, the pace seems good. Bill had a perfect start. The caution doesn't help us that much, but we're here to race, so that's what we're going to do.
Okay, good luck today, and we're going to go green here shortly. And we know how Bill was last time, so let's see another restart, guys.
And we're back underway at VIR, and Philip Ellis shot out of a cannon there down into turn 1. Auberlen Udell nose to tail here into this first corner, Cal.
Yeah, and I don't think Auberlen wanted to be crawling all over the back of Philip Ellis. He just wanted a nice clean start, get some fresh air to the nose of that BMW. A little bit of a reset, chance to tune the car up a little bit with the cockpit tools, thinking about how the balance was going, and then driving court now is a problem. I think the Smithson off again.
Yeah, that's that left hook. Just went straight into the tire bundles. And he might be in a similar situation this time, except he'll have to reverse out of that situation.
Yeah, This is very bizarre. So they got him going and he stayed on the racetrack, we believe. I don't think he came into pit lane. So the time of the scoring doesn't indicate that. So he stayed out there. So I'm not sure if he still had dirty tires, made another little mistake, but we'll have to wait and see if he can get out of there.
RS1 returning to the Pro Class battle here this weekend, and Spencer Pumpelly and Trent Hinman pairing up once more. They're just outside of this front battle here in the Pro category. There they are in that multicolored Porsche 992. And that's a great driver pairing. Two drivers have a ton of experience in Porsche machinery.
Yeah, very much so. Swept the weekend at Sebring when we last saw them in competition, so the pace is there. Spencer's on form at the moment, and now we see that safety car having to be released once again. So awful day here for Scott Smithson. But getting back to Spencer Pumpelly, he's on form right now, coming off a couple of big wins up north of the border last week in GT3 and GT4 competition. So he's got a lot of momentum.
And that will carry over, similar machinery over here, so it's going to carry in to this weekend. And of course, Trent Hinman is another driver that's got a ton of experience in various Porsche machines over the years. And that's a great lineup they've got, and another chance for a restart. So for Udell, if he didn't feel like he got the best one last time, he can try again at least. But the acceleration zone is coming down through Hogpen, Calvin, and the green flag is much later, and you cannot initiate a pass until the green flag is waving. So it's a bit tricky because you can't get an advantage and get overlap before you get effectively that green flag.
Yeah, and it's easy when you're coming down the hill if you have the lead to just get the jump. I mean, you got to wait, you got to react. There's a reaction time, and you're always going to be a little bit behind. So I think for Auberlen, he's really just got to be focused on Udell behind him, try and stymie him a little bit, not really be focused on Philip Ellis that has the overall lead and out of his class.
As far as the Pro-Am runner-up right now in class, Samantha Tan for ST Racing down in 7th overall. And they're coming off of a pretty solid round back at Circuit of the Americas. A win there, and they had one in race 1 as well at Sebring International Raceway, so hoping to keep their momentum up as well.
Yeah, talking to Samantha's teammate Neil Verhagen, he wasn't a happy camper yesterday. He just said, you know, we're struggling to get the car really working, and looking at the other BMWs and everyone else here, and they just haven't been able to uncork the performance that we've seen from them so far this year. So I say it's one of their weaker performances, but they're still sitting second in class. It's damage limitation on weekends like this, and just maximize the weekend. You're not always going to win every weekend. You just got, if you got a second place car, take that. If you got a third place car, maximize those points.
And maximizing points at the moment, and it's still early days here in this race, but ST Racing's 28. As it stands, they've closed in a big way on the Wright Motorsports 120, which runs down in 5th in Pro with the 28 leading. That's about as big of a swing as it's going to get with the cars that are here this weekend. So that's something to consider for the 120 to get up on that wheel and try to run these guys
Well,
down.
you do that for both races on the weekend, and suddenly you're right there as we head to the next rounds of the championship of Road America. So yeah, it's up to the 120 to respond. You know that Elliott Skier is going to be chomping at the bit to get his opportunity. And let's see what happens here with the 0-way. If there's any kind of technical issue that happened here with Scott Smithson. Obviously had the issue over in turn 10. This is coming up, try to chase the pack down.
Oh.
Yeah, he's got some kind of ABS issue, I think, going on with the car right now.
Yeah, same thing off into the left hook there, and it just never
locked up.
Yeah.
So I wonder if when he went off-road, it's torn off a sensor or something so that the ABS is not working correctly and just catching him out.
Yeah, it's rare to see a GT3 car with those tires all the way locked. So that would tell me that there certainly is something amiss. And then it appears that trying to pull it back onto the racetrack, they're putting it on a flatbed here, unfortunately.
It's
which
not
is
a great angle as well. That could be a little messy trying to get that loaded up.
So we stay behind the control of the Toyota GR Supra safety car for now. And again, for the 91 Regulator Racing team, not what they wanted to see, and this just makes it even worse, just having less time for Philip Ellis to get out there.
For them and the other teams like Bill Auberlen have elected to start their more experienced driver. So you just wanted to go green, create that big gap, allow your teammate to then get on board, get into a rhythm, and try and just bring it home. So this is not ideal for that strategy at all.
No, so they're going to get a restart here in a few minutes and go back to work and scrape what they can out of the remaining run here before we get to that pit window. And it's a mandatory 65-second minimum pit stop time, and that's going to create a little strategy here later today as far as when you come in. But generally, convention, Calvin, is you put your, for the Pro-Am lineups, you put your Pro driver or Am driver in first on race 1, and then race 2, the Pro driver will start. And it shifts when you aim to go in that pit window.
Yeah, so if you got the, would deem as your faster driver on board. You want to maximize their time. So 50 minutes is the max drive time. So that means you've got to be on pit lane and break that beam by that point, and conversely the other way around. Tomorrow you could stop a little bit shy of the 40-minute mark because it's going to eat up some time on pit lane before the second driver gets out and doesn't exceed that 50 minutes.
So getting some tire temperature back in the Pirelli P0s after running under yellow for a long time. Is that a consideration, Calvin, that we've been under yellow for quite some time? We had a lap or two of green, but keeping temperature and pressure in the tires.
I think it's all about prepping the tires. This will certainly save a little bit that tire deck that many of the drivers were talking about, but what you got to do is prep them. So when you're running around like this with some tire temperature and the marbles already accumulating around the racetrack, a tire is like a piece of cheese, and you're kind of using a cheese grater, which is the racetrack, shredding that during the course of the race, and all those little filings sit on the edge of the racetrack. When you're going slow like this, very easy to pick those up, kind of like a snowball if you're rolling a snowball in the winter, and then you got to clean that off. So you'll see the drivers start to weave around. That's to clean the tire. Then they'll be working the brake pedal against the gas pedal to generate a bit of temperature when we get back to green.
So Amanda Music is down on the pit lane with a teammate to the 08, Brian Sellers. She's down there. Let's see what's going on with that 08.
Brian, we took a little look at the replay with Scott. What did you see there?
Well, it's all a function of basically what happened in turn 10 in the first yellow. Unfortunately, when he came through turn 10, the car wiggled on him a little bit, and I think in these lower grip conditions, it was just difficult, you know, kind of a harmless spin in the beginning, but sometimes when that happens, the wheel speeds throw faults to the ECU, and then ultimately in that scenario, the ABS then no longer functions. So that's what you saw in the second one, is just a complete ABS. It's not a failure, but the ABS system no longer worked because of the wheel speed. So it's just a tough position. You know, Scott's really great. He's done a great job for us, continues to do a great job for us, and it's just a tough situation. You know, you feel bad for him because for someone who's never experienced that before like him, it's a very hard position to be in, out there on track with no ABS at all.
They're going to re-show the replay here if you want to take a look at it, but I talked to Scott prior to this race, and he was having high expectations with his third time here. Walk us through here what you'll do as a coach now.
Well, I think more now than anything, it's just about talking through when you feel that very first lockup, when you come down into turn one and knowing that something was wrong there. A lot of times it's learning to trust your instinct, you know, and he had just said on the radio, hey, something doesn't feel right, and it was just like a little bit behind, and telling him, hey, just go slow, make sure you get it back into the pits. It's also a tough situation because it's just gone green. The leaders are not so far behind him, so he's trying to not get involved in their race, right? So, but when you go back and look at it, it'd be a conversation of, hey, you felt it, you knew something was wrong, just take the speed off a little bit and, you know, let us have a look at it. So, again, it's not his fault. It's just a tough situation.
And guys, we'll have to remember it was Scott's journey here 2 years prior. He's been in that Mercedes, a Corvette, a new, adapting to that as well for Scott.
Yeah, it's certainly a challenging race for them here, Calvin. And yeah, it's feeling something wrong, and you know that's challenging because you don't know what you're feeling, just that something is up.
Yes, certainly he felt it in a safe place right here as he was trying to brake for turn one and kept it together. But like Brian said, that needs to ring an alarm bell in your head. Like when you get into the tight, twisty stuff, you can't be even close to where your normal braking point is. Otherwise, all of the systems are not responding. And I thought maybe you'd torn a sensor, but to Brian's point, sometimes when you go backwards and the wheel is going backwards, it messes up the computer system, and suddenly it's not calibrated the correct way.
So unfortunately, that car was on a flatbed headed back to the paddock, and car is circulating a bit quicker here behind the Toyota GR Super Safety car, hopefully getting set for our second restart of this first race of the weekend for Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. And a bit of a unique race. We've seen a lot of green flag running here this season, Calvin, and look at our race vision powered by AWS and our average speed. Philip Ellis at the top of the board there, 84 miles an hour.
Yeah, I think that's going to be cranked up here once we get some green flag action.
I hope so too. I mean, we're seeing speeds, you know, well into the 160s on the back straightaway. So give it a couple more laps of green flag running. But we've had a lot of green flag running this season. So with these yellows, it seems like it might shift around, you know, opportunities for strategies just because of where you're going to be running on the racetrack. And you don't necessarily want to be, you know, stuck behind somebody. So maybe you'll pit earlier than you otherwise would.
Yeah, again, we talk about the pros, the faster driver trying to stay up, maximize that stint length, and if you got your amp starting, which the majority of the teams do, as soon as you get to the point where you can put your second driver in and not exceed that 50-minute drive time, you're going to do so, which is relatively early in this race. So I think it's about 38 minutes, close to 39 minutes. You can get into pit lane and not have your second driver exceed that. So we're not that far away from that.
No, we're not far away from a restart either. The lights have extinguished atop the Toyota GR Supra safety car, and Philip Ellis leading the charge of weaving back and forth there, cleaning all the clag off the Pirelli P0s and getting set for another run down towards turn 1 at VIR. Now, with this shift and shuffle with the yellow flags, Bill Auberlin's gonna have another shot to drive away from Udell, and I think Spencer Pompelli, I'd be curious to see if he can take advantage of this as well.
Yeah, he's certainly going to be up on the wheel and seeing if he can get a jump on Alec Udell here. So Auberlin's right there. Philip Ellis is just kind of cruising around and then letting that safety car get well out of reach. And then about here, he's going to go for it.
And back under power down through Hog Pen. We're back underway here. Philip Ellis leads the field through turn 17 and back past beautiful buildings here at Virginia International Raceway. Swinging left, swinging right, still generating temperature as we pass under the flag stand on this restart.
See there, Spencer Pompelli moving around, just trying to get those tires cleaned off a little bit. Doesn't really generate that much temperature, but certainly it's important to have a good clean tire when you get into that first big brake zone in turn 1.
Luca Mars trying to shallow up the center of the corner there, maybe find some speed against the 85 of Spencer Pompelli, but Ellis leads into NASCAR Bend, and there's that Porsche versus Acura fight.
So Ellis now kind of, he's already frustrated, recognizing that big lead that he'd built and potentially could have been building over these safety car laps has been thwarted, but he's just got to focus forward, try and do the best he can. Auberlin in the same mode here. He wanted to try and build up a big lead in the pro class for Varun to try and bring it home, score their first victory of the season. Everyone now up to speed here. Tires are going to be in great shape by this point.
There's a lot of road there on the right, was that 85 RS1 car, and shallowed up the entry to Luca Mars and gained some ground on the 85 into South Bend.
Yeah, that race's Acura has looked pretty hooked up here this weekend. Luca's done a nice job behind the wheel. It doesn't look like he's having to use as much road as Spencer is up through the S's, so the car's really carving the corners quite nicely. This is Madison Avenue. Pick up the draft on the Porsche in front. Top speed's approaching about 160 miles an hour. You come over this crest and then you see that really important brake zone and the rubber marks there leading you in.
It's a pretty cool feature on those corner markers as well with the new partnership they've got. They actually look like playing cards, which I think is kind of a neat feature. A detail the drivers will probably miss at 160, but they look good on photos.
Yeah, absolutely. Really cool idea.
Through Hog Pen, turn 17, and back onto the front stretch. Another very long straightaway with opportunity for slipstream, but you got to, the closer you get, the more powerful that effect will be. I think he's just a little too far back to really feel that full advantage.
Yeah, and it's a double-edged sword because these GT3 cars are pretty aero-dependent. So yeah, you pull a little bit of a draft to slipstream, but then it's taking a little bit of air off those dive planes in the front splitter when you're going through some of these high-speed corners.
Just behind this group is the 120 of Adam Adelson, the Wright Motorsports Porsche as well. They've been struggling so far in this race to find enough pace to get up there and battle the 93. But if Luca and Spencer start to fight, maybe that'll drag Adelson right into it.
Yeah, and Adam Adelson will be very knowledgeable about the points and where they sit, and you'll know that the 28 car is their nearest threat. With them leading this race, it's a potential 15-point swing the way it sits. So he'll be a bit antsy, but it's a long race to go. He knows that Elliott Skier is going to do a great job when he jumps on board that Wright Motorsport Porsche. Had a great season, swept the weekend at Sonoma to start the campaign, and then 4 runner-up finishes following that.
And jumping into the pro category this season with Adam Adelson, and I think he's really stepped up to the plate in a big way as far as where they are in the championship right now. He's done an excellent job behind the wheel of that 120, and I think the interesting part for me is later in this season, if this Corvette continues to get the results we saw at COTA, could we see a championship battle formulate by the time we get to Indianapolis?
Yeah, they got to play a big catch-up, right? But if they start to score wins regularly, like they certainly did at COTA, anything is possible, but they've certainly got a long ways to climb back from. So I think with the 120 car, yeah, it's all about horses for courses, and maybe the Porsche isn't the fastest car here this weekend, but just maximize those results. Don't get carried away by the championship position and seeing that BMW of Bill Auberlin sitting there leading the class.
Philip Ellis pulling away from Bill Auberlin and Alec Udell, but Udell's keeping Auberlin in his sights. They're only about 3 or 4 car lengths back, but this battle is closing in. This is 3rd in class for the pro battle at the moment, and Luca Mars all over the back of that multicolored RS1 car.
Yes, Here's the Acura meat and a Porsche breaded sandwich right here. So let's see what he can do. The car seems to be working well. He doesn't seem to be using as much road as Spencer is there. You see that puddle that sits there all day long. Right on the exit, the car is kind of not loaded at that point, so it's not a big issue.
In qualifying this morning, the Acura was pretty twitchy in the kind of damp conditions that they had, but it's looking more hooked up now in the dry, as you pointed out earlier. And got that 85 right in the crosshairs up through this section. And mid-engined Acura, rear-engine Porsche. So a little bit of a difference as far as how they put down power and how their dynamics are, but both also 6-cylinder engines, but both different configurations.
Yeah, I think with the latest iteration of these Porsches, they seem to be shoving that engine further and further forward, so it's becoming more of a mid-engine car. Traditionally, I always thought about it as rear-engine, but they've been tweaking on the chassis design and getting that engine as far forward as they can.
Trying to center that weight balance out as close to 50-50 front to rear as you can get, but the Acura's twin-turbo V6 spooling up down the back straightaway here, Madison Avenue, in tow behind Spencer Pumpelly.
Pretty even there, even in the draft, he's really not closing in, so would suggest that maybe the Porsche has got a slight edge, but it's really close. They do such a great job in this championship with the balance of performance and equalizing all of these melting pot various manufacturers that we have in this championship.
Bit of a gain in the braking zone there, I think, for the 93, but lost it through the center to exit of that run down the hill. Under 1 hour remaining, 58 minutes to go. And this battle is the fiercest on the racetrack at the moment, and Adelson's got a great view from that green and yellow Porsche just at the back of that shot of these two going at it here for P3 in class.
See there, see the Acura there, just able to keep a nice tight line coming out of turn 2.
19, Will Hardiman has, I believe, gone to the pit lane. He scored a lap down now. Here's a look at what happened. And it looks like a bit slow down here through Hogpen, Calvin, and oh, big wiggle. And
yeah, he might cut down a tire or got a broken suspension. I mean, you hammer the curbs pretty hard around here. So, that's the problem. The wheel is loose. So that's rare for that to happen this deep into a run. Typically, if it's finger trouble or something like that, by finger trouble, I mean the wheel not being perfectly tightened. That will happen much earlier. To happen this late in the race. There's see Sabo.
It's that left hook there.
Yeah, he's got to be careful again that we don't get into a scenario like we had with Smithson.
Yeah, it's so slippery over there. He's it's sliding. There's a bit of a dip there in the.
It's tough. It's tough. Just the subtlety of the topography of the racetrack here. If you're down in a little bit of a dip, tough to get the traction to get out of there.
He had a shot at getting it out. We'll see if he can keep working on it. But 19 losing the left rear wheel and the 8 car going for a spin. So some drama spinning back up again here. 57 minutes to go. RS1 leading Racers Edge Motorsports in this fierce fight for a podium spot. Still a long ways to go, but Adam Adelson right up in the mix now. He found some speed. He's running the tailpipes of the Acura.
He has. Spencer's a bit of a cork in the bottle here, but he's got so much experience compared to young Luca Mars and Adam Adelson. He's not going to be feeling the pressure that most people would. He's just going to sit there and take it all in his stride.
Down the front stretch now, and again, I think we haven't really seen progress on the 8. He's still stuck over there at left hook, and
not sure he can get out of there.
Not going anywhere.
You can see that, just that slight incline there, trying to get back to the racing surface.
Yeah, that's been the kind of the story so far. Is the track is dry, but everything else is not. And unfortunately, other than the pretty narrow strip of asphalt, everything else is grass here on this circuit, so it's tricky. And the grass slopes away from the road in most instances, so you're always driving uphill to get back to it.
Yeah, you can't really be thinking about what's the shortest route to the racetrack. You got to be just looking at where's the flattest line where I actually get a little bit of speed and momentum to maybe crawl my way back.
And let's have a look at how Elias Sabo found his way over to the slippery grass area that he is in now, and this is leaving NASCAR Bend and that puddle potentially.
Hit that puddle, yeah. And then he goes for a ride.
Whoa. Yeah, he came back across the racetrack. Ooh, that was close.
That was close. And then, as I say, it's hard to do like a hook spin. The tire's got so much temperature, they just kind of bog down.
And there's the double yellow flags, our third safety car of the race.
Ellis is going to be fuming.
Yeah, this is not what he needed.
That's the roll of the dice. That's the gamble you take when you elect to use this strategy by starting your faster and more experienced drivers.
Yeah, and all 3 yellows have been for cars that were just unable to move themselves, or would have had the ability to if it wasn't wet and rainy earlier today, but that's just kind of the hand we were dealt as far as the weather was concerned.
Yeah, And I think we're within about 4 minutes of the earliest potential stop.
So will we adjust the pit window in that case? How does that work?
I'm not sure. I think if we get into the pit window, typically pit lane stays closed. There's a bit of flexibility on that in terms of when the teams elect to come. It wasn't like a hard timeline in the race like it was before. You basically have a max drive time that you got to make sure you're not outside of, so there's a bit more of a window than there was last year.
I'm going to look at our race vision powered by AWS, fastest laps of the day. And Philip Ellis, a good bit faster, about 2/10 quicker than Alec Udell. Yeah, so Bill Oberlin, P3, Luca Mars, P4, Spencer Papelli. So when you factor in that Philip Ellis was 2/10 quicker there and 3/10 quicker here and a second quicker there, every time we get these yellows, it's erasing that advantage he'd built up.
Yeah, and Robbie Foley celebrating his birthday today. He's going to be a happy camper because this works for him, because Rothberg will not be that far from the Pro-Am lead. It's going to give him more of an opportunity to make some hay here when he gets back behind the wheel. Sat on the pole here last year, had a really strong qualifying run here this morning. We'll line up on the front row of the grid for tomorrow. That's Robbie Foley, and big day for Turner with Justin scoring that victory here earlier today in GT America.
And that's got to help you as well, right? You get a victory in really challenging conditions and then it dries up. You probably feel like Superman out there, right? I mean, you've got that win already on the weekend. You've got a great driver as a co-driver paired up with you. You've got a full course yellow that's keeping everyone tight together before you put your hot shoe in. So it's going to be really fun after the restart and the pit stops to see how the Pro-Am fight shakes out as well. We've been focusing mostly on the Pro battle near the front, but that Pro-Am group is pretty close together as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to intensify. Normally it takes a while for everyone to catch up when you run that reverse strategy, whereas now we're going to be thrown immediately into some big dicing going on.
So helmets going on for Runchowski, and his helmet and Hans Device getting bolted on and getting ready to jump in the car. But again, we're still a few minutes away from the opportunity to come down to pit lane for Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, round 7 of the 2024 championship. It's been a challenging weekend. One of the topics that we came into talking about was, you know, the varying conditions that the field has had this week. It was so hot on the test days. It's cooled off a bit. We got some rain and some weather in qualifying. Just, we haven't seen an event that's been this complicated from a planning perspective in some time. So when we come down to pit lane here, though, Calvin, the way that this pit stop sequence works is each team has a minimum pit stop time that they have to hit as well.
Yeah, so there's a maximum drive time of 50 minutes, and then when you're on pit lane, which is from when you break the beam coming in to leaving, so it's not just the servicing, it's from pit in to pit out, including the service and the driver change, is 65 seconds. So you got to factor all of that in. So what it means is for your second driver to not exceed that stop, you could come in as early as 51 minutes and 5 seconds to go in this race, spend your 65 seconds, then when the car leaves pit lane, you'd only have 50 minutes left. So that's that way it's been working, but I'm curious to see if pit lane will stay open here, because we are right in that pit stop window. It makes it difficult for the race officials to make sure people don't get a lap, but looks like maybe going back to green. Yeah, we are going back to green here, and the pits are effectively open this time through, and no one's going to follow the safety car up front here. But no, not quite. We're a little bit over that delta that you mentioned, Calvin. But back underway at VIR, and Philip Ellis not going to have a lot of time to try to pull away from the field, but the battle for second overall in the Pro Class lead, it's under fire down into turn 1. Yeah, I think it's about 30 seconds before we get to that window of opportunity, unless you elect to stay on pit lane for an awfully long time to make sure you don't exceed that 50 minutes for your second driver. But here we go. Intensity is up. How far are you going to push it? I mean, for Philip Ellis, I'm sure he's going to stay out there this extra 10 minutes or so. So he can go 50 minutes on this run, but has to be in pit lane by the time 50 minutes have elapsed in this race. I think Oberlin may do the same. Just try and take advantage of this clear air, no traffic in front of you. Just get the hammer down, but their strategy has gone upside down here with this rash of yellows. Certainly. So it's going to be an interesting trip by the pit lane next time, as the drivers that would like to maximize their pro driver and the Pro-Am lineup's drive time, they've got to come by next time through, and it'll be a busy pit lane down there as well, and you can get caught up in other people's pit stops too. You could certainly see some teams electing to dive in this lap. And into turn 12, back up onto the front straightaway here, or the back straightaway rather, Madison Avenue up towards Roller Coaster, and we'll see that first trip by pit lane. The irony of the yellows and stuff, this is exactly what Philip Ballas needs for tomorrow, not for today.
Yes.
We'll wait and see.
Yeah, that would, you know, this. The problem is it probably won't happen this way again. The way the circumstances have played itself out, right? I mean, it's possible, but been a very unique race so far, I'd have to say, as far as when the yellows fell and for what reason. And most of it was because of the wet track, which we may or may not see with the grass tomorrow. It could soak into the water table and be gone. But here's pit stops, Calvin.
Yeah, I expected to see at least the 120. You got Alec Udell coming in, going to turn over Tommy Milner. Zach Veach is going to take over for Luca Mars in the red Acura. Then Adam Allison, the championship leader. Elliott Skier going to jump on board. Neil Verhagen. So this was the first opportunity, and everyone grabs it.
Yeah, so this is when I was talking about it's so full down there that you have to make sure you're not getting held up by any of their teams when you pull out, or if your pit stall is near another's. There's ST Racing pulling in. Driver change here. And that's Samantha Tan's car. She'll be tossing the proverbial keys over to Neil Verhagen for the second half of this one. Adam Allison out, Elliott Skier in to the Wright Motorsports Porsche.
And you just need a nice, smooth pit stop. There's no real panic needed here. You should have plenty of time. Ideally, everything should be done. Driver sitting on board, fueling ton. You'll probably see the car sit stationary for 5 to 10 seconds, waiting for a little dash light will come on and give you the indicator you're good to go, and you're not going to be underneath that 65-second minimum stop time.
So cars pulling away, and Alec Udell had tossed the seat over to Tommy Milner in the 63, and they're off and away. The Wright Motorsports Porsche up a handful of spots in that exchange.
Yeah, I think they may be about a 10th underneath the minimum, so that's a multiple of 10 this year, so that'll be a 1 second add-on, I think, for them. So we'll get clarification on that. But everyone else was in the 65-plus range. It was a 64.8 start for the 120 machine.
Yeah, so 105.298, just 2/10 over. That's maximized that pretty well, I'd say. The goal is to be at 65.001, I'd imagine, right?
Yeah, and by being that little bit quicker on pit lane and being underneath the minimum stop time, it's actually created a change of position, so the 120 has gotten around the 93 there. So it may be worth paying that. The problem if you have a post-race penalty is if there's a yellow right before the finish, all of the field is compressed, and that can cost you several positions. If you've got the track position, you can eke out a big margin. It's really a throwaway, but it can go upside down on you if there's suddenly a last lap caution and all the field is crawling across the line.
Is there any team, as CRS1 pulling in for their stop, is there any team that you think would purposely run short on their pit stop and take that gamble?
Well, that can be a strategy right there. I mean, maybe they already made that call. You know what, we're just going to be a little bit light, pay the price, but it's going to give us the track position, give us clean air. But again, it can backfire.
So RS1 in, so that will be Trent Hinman climbing in behind the wheel of that car for the second half of this race as we approach the halfway point at 45 minutes here in a few. Now at the 120 with Elliott Skier behind the wheel, this is where this pro fight's really going to get spicy here in the next couple of minutes as everyone cycles through.
Yeah, and Elliott's been so impressive. He's a young man who was on the Porsche radar for a number of years. He had Pat Long, Porsche factory driver, American driver, mentoring him, and then he just disappeared. And then he got hooked up here with Adam Adelson in GT4 competition, probably GT4. They had great chemistry, had immediate results in GT4 competition, then made the move, and they've both just taken to it like a duck to water in terms of being comfortable in this form of machinery and getting great results. Great team, of course, led by John Wright and the whole Wright Motorsport team.
So the 38 here challenging. Neil Verhagen down the inside of the 93 Racers Edge Motorsports Acura. That got tight. I think Neil Verhagen's feeling the pressure here to try to get up potentially and chase that 91 down.
Yeah, he's pushing, and he's got Robbie Foley right on his tail as well, so that is a battle for Pro-Am positions. You got Philip Ellis up front, and Jeff Bowen's going to take over from him, and both Foley and Verhagen should have a bit more pace than Jeff here in this race. So this battle between the two BMWs, this is potentially for a win here in Pro-Am, so it's going to get feisty here. Both BMW factory pilots. I'd have to say that I think this weekend in general, the Turner Motorsports cars showcased a little bit more pace, but Neil's got up on the wheel here in his gap, Robbie, initially here in this run.
It's a fun fight to watch behind the 93, but also just up the road, you see the green and yellow Porsche past the RS1 car, but the pit stop for the 120 is under review, Calvin, and again, that's probably for that short pit that you pointed out earlier.
Yeah, it's just over a 10 slower, and it's a multiple of 5 last year. We used to play with the Joker and stuff, and now it's a multiple of 10. So it'll be about a 1 second add-on, 1.1 seconds at the end of the race.
Yeah, but they were able to get around the 85 of Trent Hinman as well, so that did play out. I mean, now they're running second in that third in the pro category with Oberlin up the road and the 63 of Tommy Milner there, but good progress they're making. Tommy Milner goes fastest lap that last time through a 146.671 in the DXDT Racing Corvette.
Yeah, and that's on fresh tires, of course. So Ellis probably, he had the fastest lap to that point at 146.8, but I would assume that he's running his qualifying set from this morning. So Tommy Milner getting the hammer down, looking for that third consecutive victory here in the pro class. Oberlin has stayed out, so right now Ellis and Oberlin continue to lead their respective classes.
And bouncing over the curbs here through left hook and into snake. The 93 is Zach Veach, has Neil Verhagen and Robbie Foley all over him as they work their way up towards the climbing S's, and not too far back is Tom Sargent in that 32. So that's second, third, and fourth in Pro-Am on the run up the mountain.
And the gap between Tommy Milner and Bill Oberlin is 65.2 seconds, and the minimum stop time is 65, but that doesn't account for slowing down and getting up to speed. So we would assume that Tommy Milner will assume that lead in the pro class once Oberlin hits pit lane.
That's just really well executed strategy, given the circumstances for the 63 DXDT Racing team, and setting themselves up to potentially repeat what they did at Circuit of the Americas, putting themselves in the right position. But it's all about the team and the decisions they're making, when to come in, how the car's set up, and they're just executing that brilliantly.
Yeah, they really are. And just to bring you back up to speed in terms of the maximum drive time of 50 minutes, that means that Oberlin and Ellis have 3 minutes and 20 odd seconds before they have to be on pit lane.
So down through roller coaster and into hog pen again. Blue flags waving for some lap traffic there, but 93 Zach Veach trying to run from the Pro-Am cars here up on the front straightaway. And just under half this race remaining. You mentioned that maximum drive time, just about 3 minutes away from expiring.
And look at Robbie Foley, big run here on Verhagen. Looks back to the inside, a little bit of movement there by Neil Verhagen. Maybe he overshoots the corner. Foley try to keep it clean down at the inside. Two BMW teams going side by side, two BMW factory pilots. Neil doesn't want to give it to him. There's some argy-bargy there. He's sending Foley for a ride. This is going to be a big one.
Big hit there for the 29 of Robbie Foley into the wall at NASCAR Bend, Calvin.
You do not want that to happen. That is not what you do when you're running for the same brand.
No, that's a big hit there for the 29, and it will bring out another safety car with 42 minutes to go. That was just at a bad spot, side by side, kind of muscling each other across the road, and once the tire drops in the grass, it's game over.
Yeah, you could see that they were trying to coexist, but then that's a really tricky brake zone, and Neil just kind of left Robbie nowhere to go there.
That's unfortunate for Robbie Foley and the Turner Motorsport team. They were having such a strong run and lots of
Ellis and Oberlin, they're like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. So now what happened? I mean, so what's the drive time situation like now with?
Well, it'll be extended if you run into a yellow like this. So they're not going to run afoul of that as long as they come in. But just all of that gap is gone.
Yeah.
You know, by the time they stop and get off pit lane, it may be minimized if you were still under yellow, but nonetheless, it's just what's this? Our fourth yellow?
Fourth yellow. Yeah. So this is not going the way of the reverse strategy this time. And, you know, there were races this year where, you know, they really would have liked to have some yellows, but this is not one of those races, and not at the right time for those yellows, certainly, as well. I mean, if there is a right time for them.
Rethink this a little bit. They may just say that was your problem by running it so close to exceed the drive time. So they need this safety car to hustle.
Yeah,
because before there used to be an extension when we had the pit stop window last year where it would be, you know, moved if we went yellow when you needed to get to pit lane. But this was a decision based on the teams to keep their drivers out. So this is going to be a tricky one. And with 48 seconds to go, I don't think you're going to get back to pit lane. It's going to be awfully tight.
No, I don't think so. It's taken about a minute to at least to get from turn 12 back to the pit lane. And that was with the pace car hustling. So I guess, you know, you mentioned the pit stop window previously when they would extend it. That was an extension for everything. When they extended the pit window, that was for everybody, right? Now, in this circumstance, if you extend the drive time, it would only really apply, only an opportunity for these two to take advantage of it. So that's why it gets interesting.
I think they got a problem.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens here as Philip Ellis and Bill Auberland lead the way behind the Toyota GR Supra safety car. And Tommy Milner in the DXTT Racing Corvette runs third in line behind them, but poised to take the lead in this pro category. And then Andy Lee back there, he's a lap, 2 laps down to the race leaders after that issue he had at turn 4 earlier. And Calvin looks like Robbie Foley is out of the car down there at NASCAR Bend.
That's not the birthday present you want. And the other concern is how much damage is there to that car to make tomorrow's race. I guess they got Justin's GT America car. Maybe they could utilize that for tomorrow if this car is too badly damaged.
Yeah, so that's great news to see him out of the car, though. Anyway,
see this here, we're 30-odd seconds too long.
Yeah, into pit lane now, and they will come to the attention of the crews and switch out their drivers. So Philip Ellis will pass the car over to Jeff Burton, and for the 28 of Bill Auberland, Varun Chokski will jump in as well as the team goes to work on the number 91, putting a fresh set of Pirelli P0s on, refilling with VP Racing fuel. And then the rest of this race will be a bit of a chess match, I think, with effectively, restart with everyone bunched up together, ordered by class. It's a real sprint race now, even though we started with 90 minutes. So,
yeah, you just got to go about your business and like to see what the stewards elect to do here by the fact that the drivers were definitely in after the 50-minute max drive time, but they were behind the safety car, so I'm not sure if there's provision for that.
So tires on for the 28, Varun Chokski behind the wheel, waiting for the command to leave the pit box, and there's a release right alongside the number 91, and he'll have to wait for the 91 to drive by to blend in line, Calvin. The way that works is any car in the fast lane on the left there has priority over ones that are leaving their pit box, so he had to drop in behind despite having accelerated and having a nose ahead before he got into the lane.
Yeah, any overlap, you have to just let that person go. You may think, oh, well, I've got the track position. And it can be marginal. You can literally be a couple of inches up. So for the driver on the inside, think, oh, I got the track position. I'm look at Philip Ellis, just a wry smile. He just can't believe that went upside down on them.
Yeah, and again, some days there's an opportunity for that to go about as well as it could, but it's very circumstantial in the way that this strategy would really play out. And I think today the circumstances were absolutely not in their favor. But the 91 and the 28 back up to speed now, working their way around the 3.2-mile, 17-turn circuit here at VIR. And then in the Pro-Am category, there's a look at Neil Verhagen, who is now leading the Pro-Am fight. Now they come into this event as the points leaders. And of course, third in the championship was that 29 Turner Motorsports car. So this really is going to turn out good for them once we go back racing.
Yeah, it's a real shame because I was looking forward to that battle between Neil and Robbie there, and just didn't give each other enough room there heading up into turn 3. It's a tricky break zone. You're kind of weaving around. And yeah, it looked like Robbie had got underneath Neil as they exited turn 2. But this happens. It's racing. Drivers going to be going for it.
They certainly were going for it here. Behind the Toyota GR Supra safety car, lights are still on as we continue to make our way around. 36 minutes to go in our 90-minute race here today. Of course, we'll have another one tomorrow. We've already qualified for that. And again, I think we're going to see a bit of a different shape race tomorrow with the driver lineup sort of inversed. So it kind of creates a different feel on day 2 versus day 1 of these weekends.
It certainly does.
63, Tommy Milner leads in the pro class with Elliott Skier right behind. So this is going to be a pretty interesting fight between these two. The brand new Chevrolet Corvette Z06 GT3R, and then Elliott Skier piloting the Porsche 992 GT3R, car that's been around a little bit more, but it will be a pretty fun fight to watch.
Yeah, certainly this day got a lot better for the 120 squad, didn't it? We were talking about a potential 15-point swing and Auberland running up front, leading this pro class, and suddenly...
Well, you said it. That's racing. 1 minute it's not in your hands, and then the next it gets handed to you in some ways. But they put themselves in position in running clean laps and being poised, and they had a great pit stop sequence. Of course, we mentioned they had that slightly short stop potentially, but still no announcement on how that has come as far as the pit stop review for the 120. But regardless, I think they're in a better position than they were before the pit stop sequence.
Yeah. I think by my math, they're going to have a 1.1 second or 1.1 to 1.2 second penalty at the end of the race, which typically is not that big a deal, but you never know. If skiers should get the leader and Tommy Milner, and Milner's right on his tail, that could be enough to reverse the order.
Well, it's been an interesting race so far, to say the least. The Corvette leads the way in the pro category. Skier, Hinman, and Veach the running order in the pro class. And then, of course, we mentioned Pro-Am, Neil Verhagen leading over Tom Sargent, and Jeff Burton running third now, the way that that's shaken out. But is that, have they passed all the timing lines there? I think he should be behind 19. No, they're a lap down, so that is correct. Jeff Burton is running third in the Pro-Am class. So opportunity here for the 32 to gain some points in their battles in the championship.
Yeah, and Tom's been really quick here this weekend, so this could be fun to watch.
Scored some nice points at Sebring and got a couple at Circuit of the Americas as well, but I don't think they've been on podium yet this season.
And I've got a feeling that Kyle Washington may know how to celebrate. I think there could be
a
party. But another race tomorrow.
I think Champagne, or is it E-Boost? That's more his style.
Yeah. Long way to get to that point here. A lot of racing.
It's the 19 of Adam Carroll. They are scored one lap down at the moment. Remember, this was the car that had the left rear wheel come off, right? Yeah,
that's
so
right.
They've repaired that, got a new wheel nut on it, and still running in fourth in the Pro-Am category. I think what they would like is an opportunity to somehow jump the leaders and then get another full course yellow so they can come back around, but that is a complicated scenario for that to happen.
Yeah, that's a tall order.
Yeah.
I think at this point you just got to recognize this is the hand I've been dealt for Adam Carroll. Just enjoy this racetrack. Go have a great stint aboard that S's Racing Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah, learn what you can for tomorrow and see if you can find out if the trackside crews have been able to recover that other wheel, if you can figure out what had happened.
See all of the safety enhancements there, just tremendous stuff by the whole staff here to make some of the the zones that are a little bit dangerous, just making them as safe as possible, stopping cars cutting through, because if you do have an issue at the back of the straightaway at curves, you kind of go straight through before, so they've increased that tire barrier, put in that excellent cat fencing. That's the latest technology there, so huge investment, great improvements every single year.
Yeah, and the GR Supra safety car continues to lead us around here. And you mentioned those trackside improvements, Calvin, not only to the barriers and to the catch fences, but also to the facilities on site. They've got Skip Barber Racing School opening up a new facility nearby, and there's lots of improvements to the facilities here at VIR as part of their improvements to the facility over time. It's changed very little since 1957, but as far as the racetrack is concerned, but it is a nicer and nicer place to be every single year. So with the safety car leading, we should be shortly. Again, we've been under caution for a few minutes now, but the incident between those two cars is under review, the 38 and the 29, perhaps no surprise there, but we'll get set to go. It'll be under 30 minutes. As far as the race, when we do get resumed, Calvin, will likely be under 30 minutes of racing remaining. So this is a real sprint from here to the end.
Yeah, it is. Everyone's going to be up on the wheel, and there's championship pictures to be thought about. So for Neil Verhagen with that championship lead, if Tom Sargent, for example, gets really feisty behind him, how hard do you want to battle him for that win? 32 is not really in true championship potential. So, yeah, lots of things to think about, but these are races they want to win. They want to win every single weekend, so you got to factor all of these things in now.
Yeah, I think to your point, I mean, the 32, while they're not in the battle for the championship, they are chasing the 08 of Scott Smithson and Brian Sellers. There is the post-race time penalty for the 120, and right on the money there, Calvin, 1.08 seconds. Post-race.
Yeah, and as I say, if you got nice gaps, not a big deal, but should he get around Tommy Milner, and Tommy Milner's drafted him across the line, that could be enough to reverse the positions there. If you get a big compression crawling across the start-finish line, you literally see people bumper to bumper there if they know of that Elliott Skier's got a post-race time penalty. So lots of today, I think anything can happen. It's been a wild one, right?
It sure has, and I think the weather was a bit unpredictable, but not in this race. It was all before this that the weather came through, but because of the conditions it's created off to the sides of the track, that's what's kind of put us in the scenario with a couple different full course yellows, and the pit strategy sort of got ruined for the 91, although they've honestly landed not so bad after all things considered, third in line, but Jeff Burton's got some work to do in the second half of this race. The drivers just want to get going as well here. And when they do, especially the pro class battle between Milner and Skier, I think those two are going to go toe-to-toe. It should be fun to watch. And while they're doing that, Trent Hinman will be right behind, ready to pounce. Down through roller coaster, I think, didn't get a good glance at the super safety car that time through. We'll get it as across as this shot. Lights are still on, so we'll continue around another go.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that battle there, 5th overall for the Pro-Am lead. I think up front, I think Milner's obviously run some really quick laps, but I think Ellis actually went quicker there on those final few laps before he hit pit lane. He actually took away that fast lap by Tommy Milner on well-used tires and dropped that fastest lap down to 146.2.
That's half a second clear nearly from Tommy Milner as well. That was an exceptional lap that he had run.
There was a degree of frustration in that fast lap as well.
I imagine. Yeah, but I guess when we get green, having clear racetrack for Milner, I think that's going to be the most important thing. Is you've got no one ahead of you, you've got clear racetrack, nobody out the windshield, and just focus out the front of the car.
I think for Philip Ellis, though, you know, it's all about racing, right? There's good and bad days, and what a year he's put together, coming off a class victory at Spa. He's won 4 huge endurance events this year: Daytona, Sebring, Watkins Glen, Spa. I mean, just a monster year. I mean, people have a similar record, but not in the space of 5-6 months.
Yeah, I mean, you got to take the bad with the good, right? Yeah. I mean, as far as this race has gone, it's not gone their way. But to your point, the season he has had has been exceptional, and not just in one series, in several, and across some of the world's greatest racetracks. He's got to be living the life right now, as far as that's concerned. And you know, he'll take away some disappointment from this, but tomorrow's a new day, right? And they can try it all over again.
He can celebrate with another ice cream.
He sure could. Sometimes that's all you get after a day of racing is an ice cream, but he'll take it. And chasing the GR Super Safety Car up the climbing S's one more time, and the sun is out as much as it's been all day, and kind of drying out all the cracks and crevices and things. It'll take the grass a while. There's places where the water tends to accumulate, but as far as this afternoon, it's about as dry as it's been. So let's have a look at the replay of that incident between the 29 and the 38. Of course, we saw Robbie Foley get out of the car, Calvin, which is the best news of all, but this is 2 BMWs going at it here. Just a little bit of side-by-side pushing and shoving.
You can see they're both pretty evenly matched there, trying to coexist into the brake zone. And there's that little rub there. So Neil coming through the left-hander just runs out wide, gets on the curb a little bit, and then that just forces him across the road, gives Robbie the nudge. And as we've said so many times that before, you hit the grass, you're just off for a ride.
Yeah, so off for a big ride there for the 29 of Robbie Foley. So good to see him walk away from that. But let's head down to Amanda Busick. She's down in the pit lane, standing by with Samantha Tan.
Hey, baby, get a little active here on pit lane. We might think that the 28 BMW is about to come here to pit lane. And Sam, we did take a look at the replay. I know Neil told the team that he felt that it was a racing incident, and I know you spoke to Justin Rothberg. What was that conversation like?
Yeah, I just ran over there. It was a really big hit. Just wanted to see if Robbie was okay, and you know, glad to see that he walked away, especially it's his birthday. So my heart goes out to them. But at the end of the day, they were both racing hard. I'm not sure what the stewards will say, but we'll see.
You know Neil probably better than anyone out here. How does he bounce back in his mindset? Is he pretty good at leveling emotions?
Yeah, I mean, he always keeps it clean. I mean, we've seen him race throughout this season and last season, so he's a clean driver, he's a good driver, and hope to see him bring it home.
Thank you, Sam. We'll keep an eye on pit lane here. I do believe that the 28 BMW should be making its way to us.
So the 28 BMW down on pit lane, Cal, what's this all about?
Not sure, to be honest with you. I don't see anything on the screen in terms of any sort of penalty situation, so not sure there's a technical issue with that. We do believe that both Orblin and Philip Ellis exceeded the 50-second drive time, but it was behind the safety car. But certainly right now, I think Bruner's feeling something. They may be changing that right rear. I see something on the data with the tire pressure sensors, or he's just feeling something that's not quite right. playing it safe here.
Yeah, they gave the right front Pirelli a good shake there on the hub to see if it would move. Maybe felt a loose wheel or something, but then they just replaced the right rear. So whatever that is, it's going to knock them down to the bottom.
Sometimes, you know, I'm speculating here, but sometimes you can get some tire pickup, and that can really give you a weird feel. That you think something's wrong, the tire's cut or something is broken, because the pickup can be so extreme. But we're understanding there may have been an issue with the right rear being loose. Amanda, what are you seeing down on pit lane?
Yeah, so the 28 down on pit lane here, and it sounds like Amanda might have more for us on the 28.
Yeah, just quickly on the 28 of Bill Oberlin and Bruchowski, it was a right rear that was loose, so they brought it in just in case to replace it.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. Would have been a little while ago, yeah?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if Arun saying he thought it was loose or it was actually loose, but either way, playing it safe, you kind of afford to be, well, it's hard for the driver to even commit if they're going around this racetrack thinking that the wheel is loose. So.
Big championship swing here as well with the 28. I mean, we were talking about the big difference when the 28 was at the top of Pro versus the 120 at the bottom, and now it's almost entirely, it has entirely flipped now, effectively.
As I recall, it was like 11-point margin the way they ran earlier in this race, and you can see it's up to 34. So there's 26 points coming into the weekend, but then with Oberlin leading and Adelson down in 5th spot was going to be a big swing, but that's all turned around, obviously.
Yeah. How the turntables. And, well, Robbie Foley is standing by with Amanda. Let's check in on how he's doing down there.
Viewers have seen a replay at this point, Robbie, and word from Neil Verhagen over to his team was that it was a racing incident from his perspective. Yours?
No, not a racing incident. It's interesting. So I left plenty of space in turn 3, and then I don't know why he started to come to the right, and then he hit me once to the right, and I was like, oh, this is not going to end well, and he kept driving me to the right, just to the grass. So I don't see it that way. I'll have another look at it, but for me, I just got driven straight off the track into the wet grass, and then it's over. So it sucks for our team. We had an amazing car here this weekend, but yeah, I'll have another look at it, but I absolutely do not see it as a racing incident, not even close.
Robbie has been cleared and released from medical. Did tell us that he feels good after, his body's fine after that hard hit, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. It's great that he feels good after that, but yeah, certainly some frustration there from Robbie.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's an unwritten rule, really. I mean, two very competitive teams, BMW squads. You don't want to be taking out another BMW team and two BMW factory drivers. They get paid from the same sources, and let's see how this develops. So you can see Verhagen feels he's under attack. Robbie right there didn't force the issue. Do you know what I mean? He didn't wash out, getting a Neil. Then you accelerate off this corner. This is where it gets tricky with this part of the racetrack because it flows. And then right there, Neil is in the grass, and that just loses him a little bit of grip, and that forces him over into Robbie. So I don't think he drove into Robbie, but by electing to keep on it and getting into the grass, and he wasn't in great track position, he ultimately ended up over there. So I don't think it was egregious, but it could have been avoided. You got to coexist, particularly when it's another BMW.
Yeah, so certainly a frustrating end for the 29 Turner Motorsport crew after a promising start to this race, and it will certainly impact where they're running in the championship. But with all that in the rear view now, all that Neil Verhagen can do is focus on going out and getting the Pro-Am win. And I'm sure, you know, we don't really know what's going on in his head right now, Calvin.
I think Neil is strong enough in the head. He'll just put this behind him. He'll be focused forward. He is back in race mode. He's not even thinking about that right now.
Yeah, so focus forward, out the windshield, and there's the lights on the Toyota GR Super Safety Car going out. So that means next time by, we're going back green. So we're going to have under 20 minutes remaining in this race when we get back around. And this is going to be a true sprint to the end, and so you got to get your elbows out.
You do. You can forget about tire deck and all that. This is going to be a flat-out sprint. Use every ounce of that Pirelli rubber to the max here and see if you can score a victory.
As far as prepping for this restart, I mean, how aggressive should drivers be getting?
Big.
Yeah.
I'm surprised I'm not seeing the cars weaving around a lot more aggressively than this.
It seems like the safety car speed is fairly low here. Maybe it'll speed up leaving Oak Tree, but I thought we'd see some more weaving here as well.
This track is relatively clean though. Normally at this stage, because I think we've had so many yellows here, normally at this stage of a race there's a lot more marbles offline through here, but Yeah, you're working the brake and the gas, as we said earlier in the show, but had a prep for a restart. But I would have expected to see these cars weaving around a bit more vigorously to certainly make sure you can spin up the rears to clean the rears, but certainly the front tires, you really need to work the steering to get them cleaned off.
So leaving Oak Tree now on the run up Madison Avenue, we'll see what drivers and teams will do to prep their cars for this restart. It's been quite some time since we've been underway, so with a bit of a reshuffle here, you see now the aggressive weaving.
Yeah, you can see Sellers is actually back out there, so they got the 0-8 out there, probably to, again, treat it as a bit of a test session, learn a little bit with the setup, make sure that wheel speed sensor ABS issue has gone away.
Yeah, they will at least leapfrog the 29, I think, but I don't think it's going to do a lot for them, unfortunately. But let's see what happens here on the restart as the Toyota GR Super Safety Car is getting set to head back for home. And Tommy Milner in the 63 DXDT Racing Corvette leads Elliott Skier for Wright Motorsports, Trent Hinman for RS1, and Zach Veach for Racers Edge Motorsports. And then in 5th overall, Neil Verhagen, Tom Sargent, and Jeff Burton run nose to tail in the Pro-Am fight.
Milner's gone a little bit later than we saw Philip Ellis earlier. Safety car was a bit too close to go as early as Ellis did, so here we go.
Back underway, back under power. And the flat plane crank engine in the V8 behind the driver, and Tommy Milner is up now on the revs as we come across the start-finish line. 18 minutes and 57 seconds to go, and Elliott Skier is on the hind foot here with Trent Hinman close behind, sweeps to the right, but not close enough for a dive.
No, not close enough. Looks like Milner's in there pretty deep, but manages to get it back together. Now accelerates, a little squirming there, coming off the corner. Zach Veach is up on the wheeler. That Racer's Edge red Acura there, sitting in P4 overall and in class.
They'd like to get back up on the podium here this season as well, and he sees it right in front of him. It's the 85 RS1 Porsche that is a trophy-paying position here today.
5th car in line is Neil Verhagen. That's the leader in Pro-Am. Sargent is close, but Verhagen's got a car length or two there. He's not under extreme pressure. He needs Veach to keep going here, maintain great pace so he's not stymied in any way. And that allows Sargent to get to his rear bumper.
So Tom Sargent trying to keep touch with Neil Verhagen as he's got this pro-class battle ahead of him. And I don't think Neil Verhagen would like to watch these guys battle too much, because as they get side by side, Kel, it's going to slow them all down.
Yeah, for sure. He just needs them to have good pace, get out of his way. He doesn't care if they're 3 seconds a lap faster than him. He just doesn't want to have his speed compromised in any way as he continues to lead the Pro-Am class, sitting right behind this car that we're on board with, Zach Veach.
Big news for the 38 car. ST Racing's Neil Verhagen drive-through penalty for incident responsibility for that collision with the 29 of Robbie Foley, Cal.
Yeah, when you see a car go off the road like that and have a big moment, they're going to look at it a little bit more in detail, and they're going to kind of slant towards you having a bit more responsibility, and that's Robbie Foley called it. He felt that it wasn't just a racing incident, and the stewards have elected to see it the same way. Neil's got to peel in, service penalty as quickly as possible. It's just a drive-through. Yeah, so it's not, you can't do it any quicker, as we see.
That's the 28.
Choxy.
Yep.
He was feeling something earlier when he was on pit lane, remember, changing those that right rear. Sort of position is he in? Surely we're not going to see another yellow here today.
It looked like he was like driver's left in Snake, or potentially in the climbing S's somewhere. But I didn't see, you know, like mud trails or anything. It looked like he slowly come to a stop over there. So maybe he can get things fired back up again.
Bit of body work flying there from the racetrack.
So we're going to look at, I thought he would have been over there on the left, but maybe it's actually, it should be in the climbing S's. There's the safety car again, Calvin. So safety car number 5. And so this is going to bring the, oh, there's, I see some bits of debris all over the track, actually, Calvin. You see right here?
Yes.
Yeah.
This helps out Neil Verhagen a little bit. Remember, he was just on pit lane, so he was going to come out probably 20-odd seconds behind the rest of the field. So that'll be compressed. That'll allow him to get up on the wheel and get aggressive once again.
So this is the 08. Brian Sellers chasing the 91 of Jeff Burton. And leaving NASCAR bend here into left hook. There's the 28. The 91 spins, some contact there,
Yeah,
and then
Burton
it cuts
spins. I think Sellers slowed down a little bit and then just got tapped from behind.
Yeah, so the 91 spun, and then I think it likely cut the tire or something on the 28. So, this is
day.
this is the no good, terrible. What's the whole saying on that? No good, very bad, terrible, bad day for the 91 or whatever.
Big day for GMG, though. I was going to put Tom Sargent at the lead in Pro-Am with Verhagen's drive-through penalty.
Yeah, I guess that worked out for them.
For Jeff Burton, you know, he would have been second in the Pro-Am class, so costly error there. However, a lot of the other cars in the Pro-Am class were a lap down, so maybe it doesn't hurt him too badly.
Yeah, so Tommy Milner now leading this field. You think this is advantageous that he's going to have less time to have to hold off the 120, or do you think he's got more pace for the tail end?
I don't think it affects him too much either way. I think the car is good enough to hold that track position, but, you know, again, you just got to time this restart, make sure you're not vulnerable, make sure that you got the tires prepped, you don't make that critical error through the first few corners before you get back into your rhythm. So not ideal. I think you'd have preferred it just to stay green. He had the track position, he had clean air on the nose of that Corvette, and was probably going to be able to control things.
Zach Veach is in a pretty okay position, I'd say, for the restart. He had a look at Trent Hinman down into turn 1, and they're sitting on the potential for a podium. Let's get a look at the 38 here.
Yeah, I think he's up to second again, despite the drive-through penalty.
Yeah, so the only other car that's on the lead lap in Pro-Am was the 91, who was the car that spun. So he would be second place with Carroll a lap down.
That's correct. So obviously something majorly adrift now with that 28 car.
So here's the 28 making its way up the climbing S, is already pluming smoke from that left front. So likely a cut tire or something of the sort, but there's all sorts of other things under the hood of that car.
Yeah, I think maybe it's even.
Oh, wow. Just shredded the whole front of the car there. Bits of carbon flying everywhere. So from bad to worse for the 28 after the contact.
Yeah, and I think for Varun, he's thinking, we've got a race tomorrow. Let's not just keep driving this race car and doing more and more damage.
Yeah, I think mostly when that tire flails around like that, it's usually just body work, but if it gets much worse, it can start damaging suspension components and things in the engine bay. But a debris field over the climbing S's here. This is a fast area of the racetrack, so the cleanup crew will have to make sure that they get all of these tiny bits and pieces.
Yeah, once that tire carcass comes apart, it's almost like a chainsaw just whapping around there and breaking all sorts of stuff. And these race cars are super sophisticated, big technology, and consequently very expensive. So you're throwing away $100 bills in a rapid rate if you continue to drive.
And sometimes at the tail end of the weekend, there'll be a pile on the paddock of all the bits and pieces of carbon. And just wonder what the value of that was before they were reduced to scrap, at least in that instance. But tires getting warmed back up here. These Pirelli P0s. Lights are still on the safety car. I don't anticipate going green yet, but definitely trying to keep temperature in this because it's going to be a qualifying session from here to the end. I mean, it's only a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at Tom Sargent. So Verhagen's back up to second, but I think there's 3 or 4 cars maybe between him and Tom Sargent for Verhagen to get back and try and attack for the lead once again.
And we mentioned earlier that the 32 of Kyle Washington and Tom Sargent, they have scored some points. They had 12 points each at Sebring International Raceway in both those races, but they have not yet been on the podium this season, so already they're in a good spot. The 85 car. Warning for blocking in turn 1 on the restart, so that is Trent Hinman, who's right ahead of the 93. And now that you've taken your warning, Calvin, it puts you in a bit more of a box, is what you get away with.
It does, and I don't know whether he was blocking or weaving around trying to distract Skier, to be honest with you. I thought he was just trying to like make a move on Skier and rattle him versus defending from Zach Veach behind, but stewards looked at it differently.
Yeah, so I guess the definition of a block generally is when you're moving in reaction to a trailing car versus, you know, proactively moving over, but there's probably a fine line of when you're focusing out the windshield and weaving to distract and weaving in defense, right? So it's all a matter of perspective, I'd say.
That's right.
So down into turn 1, potentially the next time by we'll be doing this at 140 miles an hour down here into the first corner. So what have we learned? I mean, we've had now 5 opportunities to restart. Is there things you can pick up on each consecutive restart and try to find a way to get a better run?
If I was Tommy Milner, I'd let the safety car get a little bit further ahead so you got more opportunity to gauge and when to jump and kind of surprise everyone. So you you don't want to cut and paste what you did the time before. So I relate it to what Philip Ellis did on the restarts earlier in this race. He let the safety car escape a little bit, which allowed him through the roller coaster to go a little bit early. You can't pass the safety car when he's still on the racetrack, so you got to time that. I felt he went quite late, but maybe he just feels that he's in the sweet spot, the torque curve of that Corvette, by going a little bit later versus the Mercedes. Philip Ellis chose to go a little bit sooner.
So the battles we'll be watching on the restart here is both the Pro and the Pro-Am lead. Tommy Milner and Elliott Skier will be going after it. I think the podium battle in Pro between Trent Hinman and Zach Veach, that'll have a magnifying glass on it. And then in the Pro-Am battle, Tom Sargent's got a few cars between himself and Neil Verhagen, and that one will be a high-octane fight to the end, I bet.
Yeah, it will, if Verhagen can get to him, but he's got to cut through some traffic, so I think Verhagen is going to be pretty aggressive, but he's also got to think, you know what, maybe it's a long shot to get to the lead. Let's not risk anything else. Second place points is pretty good, particularly with the drama for some of the other teams out here this weekend and cars that are not competing.
Yeah, so the three cars that are between those two is the number 19 S's Racing car, the 8 Flying Lizard car, and the 08 Brian Sellers for DXDT Racing. So those are the three cars that Verhagen would have to dispatch in the closing moments of this. The safety car is accelerating away halfway down Madison Avenue and leaving the field in control of Tommy Milner here, heading up towards Roller Coaster in the DXDT Racing Corvette Z06 GT3R. 2 victories at Circuit of the Americas, trying to gather a third here at VIR as we get to the restart zone, Cal.
Going for 3 on the bounce.
Heading down towards Hog Pen, turn 17. Still sort of late,
yeah.
A little earlier than last time, though.
Yeah, and Skier's right there with him. Tommy gets a good exit there off of Hog Pen, so he's gapped him by about 2 car lengths, but Skier's going to be on the attack here.
And up and away, green flag again, 8 minutes and 35 seconds to go. The 8 and the 19, that is a battle, I believe, for position between those two. They're both a lap down to the rest of the leaders, but still for position in Pro-Am. And the 93 is Zach Veach going the outside way around Trent Hinman, but wasn't able to cling to it.
Yeah, Veach looks pretty racy here. I think the Racers Edge team have got a good setup on that Acura here this weekend, and he'll probably be frustrated if he can't get up on the podium here.
Looks like Verhagen has dispatched the 08, so he's only got 2 cars now between him and Tom Sargent, but both are battling for position, although they're a lap down to each other.
Yeah, Verhagen was quite a way back on the restart. I don't think he timed that perfectly, but he's certainly dispatched 1 car. If he can get around the next one, he's got a chance. Sargent will be asking for the information, and where is Verhagen? How far behind is he?
And let's head down to Amanda Busick, who's got more on that number 93 Racer's Edge car.
Yeah, I think Zach is really going to enjoy this race as well for himself. He was telling me about kind of the development of his season so far and the stops that we have been at, be it Sonoma, Sebring, or Coda. He has no experience in GT racing at those tracks, just some of the open wheel stuff that he's done in the past. But coming into VIR, it's actually a facility that he's been to in a GT car. So he feels like he's not having to undo 15 years of bad or good habits, the way that you would describe it, in those open wheel format. But I think Zach was looking on and leaning on this weekend to be a big kickoff for him in that 93 Acura.
Yeah, maybe different habits. Just fundamentally different machines, those open wheel cars versus GTs, but some things do translate over, and certainly the talent level that Zach Veach has does.
Yeah, and
as well.
he did do a full season here in North America with GT3 cars, so and this would be one of the racetracks they would have competed on, certainly Road America as well, so he's probably getting back into more familiar territory, and that will certainly be an asset as we close out this season.
So still trying to keep the 85 checking the rearview mirror here, or at least the camera set up now that a lot of the cars have the digital camera there at the top right, looking back. The NASCAR bend here, 6.5 minutes to go, and I think Veach has got an opportunity, but still that puddle that's been there all day, still giving him strife there.
Yeah, it gives you strife in terms of the grip, but also look what it does to your windshield with the car in front of you, and that close, it just suddenly splashes all that dirty water up onto your windshield.
And all the visibility you can get here. Now up through the gears, flat to the floor now in the best conditions we've had since this race started. A little lift there, actually.
A little feather, yeah. I think we heard that from Maluka earlier in the race as well.
63 at Tommy Milner into Oak Tree. It's about 9/10 of a second to Elliott Skier, Hinman, and Veach much closer together. Tom Sargent leads the Pro-Am class, their center screen in the e-Boost car, and Neil Verhagen has only one more car to pass before the next car on his list is that Pro-Am leader.
Yes, the SS Racing number 19 of Adam Carroll, but he's had a lap there, and he really hasn't made a lot of ground in terms of closing in on the tail of this Mercedes. There he is, there's Neil Verhagen, so he had the lead of this race, then he got the drive-through penalty for avoidable contact with Robbie Foley. And I think he just needs to bring this home. Think about the big picture of the championship. There's only 5 minutes to go. Don't take any big risk here, as Adam Carroll just waves you through. He'll be getting the communication from his pit box in terms of what Neil is doing, where he's running in this race. At a certain point, there's just, you know, as a pro driver, you need to recognize the day you're having and not spoil someone else's. And there you go, he just opens up the door. Now it's clear sailing to the tail end of that Porsche, that GMG number 33. Tom Sargent has the lead. What can Neil Verhagen do with just under 5 minutes to go?
Got squeezed a bit onto the rumble strip that's right there by the start stand, and kind of popped the front of the car up there. So it was right against the right edge of the track. But when you see that rabbit right out front, I mean, it's like dangling the carrot there, isn't it?
It is. As I said, I think Neil's one of those drivers who's very strong in the head. That's what I gauge from knowing him a little bit, knowing his, understanding his personality. I think some drivers would be put off by that incident with Robbie Foley, but I think Neil's one of those guys who'll just get on it and think about what happened earlier in the race, post-race, but focus forward on in terms of trying to catch this leader.
Tom Sargent doing an excellent job in this 32, trying to run away best he can. With just 4 minutes to go. This is probably the fight that will see the most volatility here in the next few minutes, other than the battle for third in pro class between Hinman and Veach. That one has been kind of back and forth as far as the gap has been concerned. Still 3/10 between those two.
I think Tom's got two tasks here. Try and deal with the last 3 minutes plus in this race, and then focus on keeping Carl Washington under control tonight in terms of the celebration.
Well, I think one of those might be harder than the other. Into the braking zone for Roller Coaster with 3 minutes and 30 seconds left. And 1 minute and 47 is about what we're running as far as lap times right now. So getting pretty close to the end of this thing.
I think we'll probably see white flag next time.
Onto the front straightaway, up through the gears. And on board now with Tom Sargent past the start-finish line, potentially. Just about 2 minutes to go. And here's a look at this progression that they have had, just a steady climbing of positions all race long.
Yeah, Verhagen's getting close. Verhagen's only 6/10 behind him across the stripe, so this is not over by any stretch. So Verhagen has not taken my advice in terms of thinking about, you know, just take the big points. You can see the rear view mirror there, and that is Verhagen that Tom Sargent is seeing getting ever closer.
Quick hands there through NASCAR Bend. The kind of rear was walking on him a touch. A bit of a lateral slide, but yeah, that rear view mirror, that's going to be telling with that BMW lurking in the background with just 2 laps to go.
There it is. There's that battle for the Pro-Am lead.
Up through the S's.
What a turnaround this would be, to have that contact, be involved in a big fight, get the drive-through penalty, and suddenly having a chance to still win this race.
And I think all of this, the circumstances, what the other cars in Pro-Am were laps down. Wasn't a lot of cars in the lead lap get the yellow, get the penalty, put him right back in second place, and now he's all over the e-Boost car.
Here comes Neil Verhagen. That BMW's got some grunt. He's right in the draft here, perfect position. How aggressive does Tom Sargent get here? You got to be proactive in choosing your line.
Looks like drivers left here, center of the road here, going to try to dissuade Verhagen from going, but they're side by side for a moment. But it's Sargent later on the brakes. Verhagen closes in, but not quite close enough.
Beautifully judged there by Tom Sargent. It's such a tricky position to be in. You can't afford, you want to stay right to get more of a straight line into that brake zone, but when you do it, you kind of open up the door. Neil tried to fill it, but then suddenly he had to give it up a little bit as Tom got to the brake pedal a little bit later and did a nice job there, still hitting his apex and hitting his marks.
Battle for the lead here, white flag. This is the final lap of race 1 of the weekend for Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, and it's a battle for the lead in Pro-Am. Tom Sargent holding off Neil Verhagen. Verhagen's got about 3 miles left to get it done.
Yeah, let's see if he feels that Tom is vulnerable in any other area of the racetrack. So hard to pass through this sector here without getting your elbows out. He's not close enough anyway. Sargent is gradually ticking the boxes around this 17-turn racetrack. Nowhere to go up through the S's. Do you get brave in Oak Tree, tuck it back to the inside? I think probably he's thinking about a repeat, a cut and paste of the moon move that he was attempting to do down Madison Avenue just half a lap ago.
What did he learn last time, though, with what Sargent did, where he placed the car center of the road to dissuade Verhagen from going to the left? He had to back out of it that time. Big, wild slide there for Sargent. Dropped a tire on the right. He's pushing, trying to hold back the 38.
Boy, did he send it through turn 10 there. You saw it, Carl, just almost off the road there, but kept it together beautifully.
Last run up Madison Avenue. Milner leads this race for the pro class, but it's all Tom Sargent, Neil Verhagen battling up Madison Avenue. But Neil did not get the best run out of turn 12 here, Calvin. I don't know if he's going to have a shot at it into 12.
No, he's a bit too far behind, so Tom just really created that gap through turn 10 and kept it, really nailed it through Oak Tree as well.
Through roller coaster for the final time. A little wiggle there out of Tom Sargent. If he can hang on, this would be a huge victory for him and Kyle Washington in that 32 E-Boost car. Coming down through the final corner, Tommy Milner and DXDT Racing win their third weekend in the number 63, winners in the pro class over Wright Motorsports and the 85 of Trent Hinman. But for the Pro-Am battle, Tom Sargent and GMG Racing win over Neil Verhagen. That is going to be a big celebration post-race.
Great job. That is a beautifully crafted final couple of laps there by Tom Sargent. Neil put the pressure on him, kept it clean, just good, hard racing.
That is fantastic. And Kyle Washington holding up his end of the battle as well. You see him giving hugs to the crew there. This is a big win for them, I'm sure, Calvin.
Yeah, that is huge. Brand new race car debuting here this weekend. Take it to victory lane. Big times for GMG, as we mentioned earlier, opening their new shop here in about 30 days or so, lots to celebrate.
Yeah, that was great driving there, and I think it goes back to the 2 laps prior when they were battling up Madison Avenue, and he just put the car center of the road and forced Neil Verhagen to pick a side, right? It just make him have to commit to something he didn't want to commit to. And Neil was not able to outbrake him into roller coaster. Job well done, but for DXDT Racing, this Corvette on debut at COTA and here again is showing its stuff.
It really is. A little bit of argy-bargy on the opening lap with Alec Udell. Didn't have the best start to this race, but he settled in nicely, kept it clean from that point forward, and Tommy did what Tommy does in terms of a nice, clean finish to the race.
And as far as the championship, again, this is another gain for that 63 team. Again, late add to the championship, didn't run Sonoma or Sebring, but maxed out the points at Circuit of the Americas. They've got 25 to add to the list here today at VIR. And of course, we've got Road America, Barber, and of course the Indianapolis 8-hour, which is a double points race as well. So if they can continue this progress, the second place runners today, the Wright Motorsports crew, they've got to be looking in the rearview mirror as much as they are out the windshield.
Yeah, for sure. But I think they'll be happy. I mean, the day didn't look great for them with Adelson, and we're used to sitting there up in the top 3 at least, was down in P5, and it looked like it was going to be a big point swing with the day that Bill Oberlin and the 28 ST Racing machine was having, and that all got turned on its head with the amount of yellows that we saw in this race.
Well, it was an interesting race with a couple of full course yellows along the way, but let's have a look at the race results here after 90 minutes of action in Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. And at the top of the board, DXDT Racing with that 63 Corvette, winners again in pro class with Wright Motorsports RS1 and Racer's Edge finishing out the top 4 there. In 5th overall, though, leading the Pro-Am category, GMG Racing, Tom Sargent, Kyle Washington, a big celebration coming for them. And ST Racing, of course, Samantha Tan, Neil Verhagen, still getting the job done. 2nd place, that's not a bad run. Good points, all things considered.
Yeah, very good points. Good bounce back.
And of course, Philip Ellis and Jeff Burton, they're on the podium as well in Pro-Am. And despite really the strategy getting thrown out the door pretty early, they were able to still land on the podium. P3, Will Hardiman, Adam Carroll, and S's Racing with Mercedes-Benz of Austin in 4th, Elias Sabo, Andy Lee 5th in Pro-Am for Flying Lizard Motorsports. The 28, Bruin Chokski and Bill Oberlin, issues there, puncture late in the going after some contact. They finished down in 10th. And Brian Sellers, Scott Smithson, issue with the ABS, pulling that car out of the race for quite some time. And of course, we saw the incident with Robbie Foley. Glad he's okay, but Turner Motorsports 29 down in 12th. And the 50, the Schwest Povolito racing car, really got going, didn't it?
No, just a tough day for them. Showed a lot of promise in practice here this weekend, and just what a roller coaster racing can be at times.
Yeah, they've got a corner named that, but the track and the race was all about the roller coaster today, wasn't it? Up and down for a whole bunch of drivers and teams. So head back to the paddock and celebrate in the podium in a few minutes and get set to do it all over again tomorrow. I think there are some teams and drivers that learned some things. There were some challenges along the way as far as the conditions, mostly off the track, not even really on it, but I think there's some learnings for tomorrow for sure.
Yeah, a few teams are licking their wounds literally tonight. A lot of work to be done to see the green flag tomorrow. For the victors, big day there for Tommy on the home track. His dad's not here this weekend. Normally he attends this weekend, but I spoke to his sister who runs this team, Erin Grahagan, and she said, no, Dad's not coming this weekend. He gets too antsy being at the racetrack. He likes to be in control.
And Tommy Milner climbing out, and this Corvette is brand new this season. And at Sebring, they were still working out the quirks and kinks and sorting out the car. And it seems like now they're just dialing in things bit by bit and really fine-tuning the control of this car. And certainly with a wheel like Tommy Milner, they have really found something special, I think. And if they can capitalize on this again tomorrow, making their way up in the championship, although this is the win that Tom Sargent and Kyle Washington are going to be celebrating in a big way, as we've mentioned. Brand new livery, brand new car. I think there's a lot of worth celebrating here. And there it is. There's a hug between those two.
That's really cool. That's a dynamic team. I mean, Kyle is just a bundle of energy, great personality, fun guy to be around, and to see him score success at this level as Greg Gill celebrates with him.
And of course, pretty exciting stuff down there, especially that Pro-Am fight late in the race. Tom Sargent and Kyle Washington, winners of Pro-Am, are standing by with Amanda.
Tom, I have to tell you, I was standing by your team during that last lap, and I think Kyle Washington was probably burning a few calories through that last lap around VIR, but you walk us through it. Neil Verhagen was on you, and you were able to defend.
Yeah, hectic is what I describe it as. Oh, my God. Neil didn't make it easy for me. Obviously, we got a little bit lucky with him having a drive-through penalty, but then he came back there and was able to get back right on my tail for the last lap. He was actually pushing me down the back straight. It was that close. So it was great to race with him. I know him quite well, and I knew I was in safe hands racing with him, but, oh, it was hectic. I knew how important this was for the team. This has been a long time coming. Obviously, we're very new to the series, especially Kyle and I. So to get this together is amazing. The team's worked so hard, and obviously, big hats off to Kyle, absolute legend, and drove amazing all day.
Hey, Kyle, I have to say it was really fun watching those last laps as it ticked down for you. And I know talking ahead of you the weekend, the challenge that was ahead of you in this 992 now, but also just VIR. And you said that you were going to have to be on it the entire time. How much was that on display today?
Well, it's just so hard. I mean, look what happened in the race. I mean, it's with the rain at VIR. VIR is tough without rain. And you had the rain, and I mean, you saw the carnage out there. It was just, it's terrifying, frankly, for me. But it was great to watch Tom bring it home, and obviously I was a little excited there. I'm just pumped.
Your development of a driver, how meaningful is this?
This is amazing. We got an all-star team with GMG put together this year for 2 brand new Porsches, and you know, we're stoked for the rest of the season.
Congratulations, Kyle.
Thanks, yeah.
3 races in a row. Corvette has parked that Corvette here by the podium, and I'll kick it off with Alec. You think of the team that goes into racing and the execution that was on display out of you guys here today. How much was that stress?
I think the stress always comes in these situations from like not knowing what the weather conditions are going to be like, and so that's the same for everyone. But have a lot of confidence in the team from DXDT and the team from Corvette, and of course in my co-driver and Tommy. So no stress there. It's all just, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to make the right call, but that's the same for everyone. So a little bit of stress there, but otherwise once you get in the car and the race goes, that kind of all drops away.
Well, Tommy, you guys joined us at round 3 in this season. What's the ceiling for this team this year?
Well, more of this, I guess. The team is working very well. DXDT, all the guys a lot of these guys have a lot of experience, and you know, they've been working very hard the last couple of years to put this kind of all together, and obviously cool for me to be a part of that and help kind of get over the hump for them. But this shows what this team is capable of. It shows what this car is capable of. Alec is doing a fantastic job as well. So just firing on all cylinders right now. The team's working very well. Everything's working well right now for us. So we'll ride this as long as we can.
And more memories made here at VIR for Tommy. When he got out of the car, Kerrigan Smith came over and said, "That made my day."
Yeah, certainly another strong round for DXDT Racing and Corvette. This was a wild race, Calvin. A lot to follow. Let's have a look at some of the highlights from Race 1 of Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. Race 1, this was a wild start here on the run down to turn 1, Calvin. A couple bits of what you call argy-bargy here.
There was Alec Udell there from the front row. Here we see them come through turn 3. Dive planes are flying here. Luca Mars trying to make move down the inside. Scott Smithson had an off and then had ABS issues following that when he got back onto the racetrack.
Yeah, so that brought out, it was that time the second full course yellow, then a green flag, and 91 sprints away again for a few moments time before this accident here between the 38 and the 29. Robbie Foley and Neil Verhagen coming together and sending the 29 for a wild ride into the barriers. Robbie is okay after that incident. Another restart a bit later in the race after all the pit stops had happened, and the Corvette led the way.
Yeah, you can see a little bit of movement there. Trent Hinman trying to defend that position, and then there's a spin there for Jeff Burton. Brian Sellers woes it down a little bit. Bruin Choxy had nowhere to go and nails him.
Another restart a bit later in the race in the 93 Racer's Edge car. Good run up in the pro class fight, and then of course the 32 and 38, this epic brawl closing out this race here pretty shortly.
Amazing run here that Tom Sargent got through turn 10 and hangs on at that Pro-Am victory. Big day for that group.
Yeah, across the stripe, it was the third win for DXDT Racing in their new Corvette. Of course, the Pro-Am fight, though, the 32, hanging on to victory over Neil Verhagen in the 38 ST Racing car. That was a fun battle to watch. Great look at the action in race 1. Of course, we've got race 2 tomorrow, but all very, very exciting stuff. And with race 1 complete, we'll, in a few minutes, we'll get a look at the podium celebrations. And we talked a lot about the celebrations that the 32 is going to have, Calvin, but there's a lot of celebrations for the rest of the podium finishers as well.
Yeah, for sure. Big days, big point swings. I think for the 38 squad, they got to be very happy that they rebounded from that incident to still be on the middle step of the podium, and their championship lead should be a lot larger tonight with the drama for some of the other teams here this weekend.
Certainly. So again, the chance to improve tomorrow. You mentioned drivers licking their wounds, so to speak, and teams repairing some cars to go again. Every race is so critical in this championship. There's, you know, it's a 16-race, 8-round championship. Of course, you've got the Indianapolis 8-hour that is effectively a double points race at the end of the season. So every race counts a lot. If you had a bad day today, you've kind of got to get things sorted around as we get to the tail end of the season pretty shortly.
Yeah, you got to start moving if you're going to be a championship threat. But it seemed like some of the leaders in the championship had really solid days, which makes it tough. So, but for this group here, Tommy Milner, he celebrates with Kyle Washington. He got his first victory, did Kyle Washington, at this level of competition. Tommy's familiar territory, 3 on the bounce for he and Alec Udell. Just really hitting their stride with that brand new Corvette.
And Neil Verhagen and Samantha Tan climbing up onto the podium on the second step today, and so close. Maybe another lap or two, and they could have gotten back to victory lane. But all things considered, after the penalty and the yellows and the restart, I'll take a second on a day like that.
Yeah, I don't think there was any point in throwing away that podium finish. Yeah, the win would be lovely and maximize your point score, but it was a great rebound nonetheless. Neil drove very well. Unfortunate incident there with Robbie, obviously, and they'll both look at that tonight. I'm sure they'll have a conversation and try and move forward.
Yeah, a little bit of emotion out of Kyle Washington as well and all that, which was great to see. But Tom Sargent doing a great job on defense there in the tail end. There's James Safronis climbing up there as well, hoisting the trophy with that GMG Racing team car.
Yeah, big day for him. I mean, James loves to race. He's a stalwart of World Challenge competition, over 300 starts. He loves to race and win himself, but he puts his customers first, and this will be huge for him and that whole group getting this victory.
Yeah, very exciting. James also has his son racing here this weekend in another series, which is very exciting, I'm sure, for him. But this is certainly a great way to start the weekend with plenty more racing to go. And also for the 91, we mentioned, you know, after all the things that happened, still landing on the podium. I know they would have liked more, Calvin, but again, you'll take a third.
Yeah, I think it's a good day. I think Philip will be frustrated. He had the pace, fastest lap of the race, and just those yellows really took the sting out of that strategy.
Well, it was a fantastic race here in Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. Tomorrow, race 2 here at Virginia International Raceway. Thanks so much, and we'll see you tomorrow.